We are live. No, I was forgetting something. What's happening? G'day, guys. You're killing it, mate. You're killing it. It's good to see you. You're missing in action last time. G'day, Luke. Luke's apparently left the building for a while. G'day, Ozma. Yeah, just having a few teething problems, so one of those things. Bow, how's it going? Yeah, just it happens. And there's Deborah as well. I suspect you'll be sending me an email. Yeah, just look, if people have got like genetics or they've got any sort of stuff, just send it to the channel, which is Serpanos at protein .com, I think it is, proteinmail.com. Yeah, just send it to that because, I prefer basically just protecting people's privacy and stuff like that. And just yeah, so consider, and it also is a very safe sort of email account, unlike Google and stuff like that. It's encrypted and it's sort of in Switzerland, so it's basically protected by Swiss law. So for privacy and encryption, and so nobody can eavesdrop, and so because the biggest problem with Google Mail and Google but not only Google, a lot of the other companies as well, is that potentially future employers or organizations, insurance companies and all that could possibly access this information. So I would rather people, if they've got like private genetic information, stuff like that, they just want me to quote on, just give them an idea of, what's happening and stuff like that. I don't mind, but I'd try to avoid actually placing it on social media. Just tell me that you've got the stuff, and then just basically, ask me the questions via email. And when I get around them, sometimes in the evenings, I'm just sort of fiddling around doing things on my computer. I don't mind quickly looking at them, quickly giving a quick response. Don't expect, massive pages of responses. I don't do consultancies, as you know. I do have my regular sort of domestic life and work life, which takes a lot of my time, especially nowadays that I act as a mentor as well. So yeah, younger. I mean, I'm 6.5 years away from retirement, so as a consequence, I have to train a lot of the younger people that have joined our organisation. So, which is basically half the group. Me and another guy who's basically, we're both in that same he's 7 years and I'm 6.5. So, so we're both in that sort of age group where we're expected to mentor the new people. And in the next couple of years, they'll be taking over. So they'll be doing all the mapping programs and stuff like that, and providing the different types of data for the different types of clients that we deal with. Thanks, mate. Yes, please hit and subscribe. This channel will not grow and won't get noticed on YouTube if you guys don't support it. It's just simple as that. It can't happen any other way. So am I having audio problems? Am I? Is it playing up? I had an issue before. Is there anybody else picking up any issues, or am I coming across fine? Just one person needs to comment. Just Luke, am I fine at the moment? Luke's probably still away. Ozma, just, you'll do. You're the last person on the. Okay, Shelley's. Yep. Okay. So yeah, it takes a while for it to pop in the actual. Yep. Okay, it takes a while. There's a bit of a delay, and a lot of people have been having problems. So it's not only me. I've been having issues with StreamYard as well. When I was doing the Corona, I think it sort of intermittently stopped. And last time I did what was it, the UK, the Euro type live stream, it happened the same thing. It just seized up, and I'm going, what the hell's going on? And so luckily the sound and everything came back, but it was a bit hairy for a while. So I've been having that, and today I thought it was just me, but Bart confirming that, which was really good. It sort of allowed me to realize it's yeah. You know how to make me laugh. Oh, fair enough. Don't worry about it. God, we're pretty laid back and easy on this channel. We don't really get too wound up, in that regard. And yeah, it's pretty good. So, and I use it specifically for, I've got a work email and other things, but I specifically use it for private conversation, between people, and YouTube, because I do respect people's privacy as I want them to respect my privacy. So, any comments that I make and stuff like that, I hope they never sort of just put them on the web and say, Harry said this, so it goes both ways. And that's why I use that sort of service. So these people, love the eyes. These people basically, you're welcome, Deborah, don't basically, protect our data, and it's important, especially in this world. And you have to think that employers, insurance companies, and all these sort of organizations in future will be data mining this information. So we have to be very careful how we put ourselves out there, and the information we put, because it can be used against us potentially. So I'm not saying be evasive or stuff like that, but certain things which there's Jarrett. Good to see you, mate.
Hey.
I'm just ranting. I'm just ranting about privacy.
Yeah, I just thought that. That's you're a man after my own heart.
You're growing that Mario, I see, all that. I actually didn't shave today, so I'm actually quite unshaven, all that, very unusual. But I tried to grow a mole. I did grow a mole for a while, which I enjoyed and all that. But basically, I was handed over the razor by my partner, and she said, "You better get rid of it, because I don't like kissing you with that thing on." So basically,
that's just all I can grow. I barely have any hair on my cheeks.
Oh, I'm fine with growing a beard. I actually did grow a beard once. I think the best beard, I never can grow a perfect beard. My father, on the other hand, God almighty, you should see old photos of him. I'll actually find one. I'll actually show you guys one of these. Beautiful beard. He looked like an artist, And I mean, actually, he even used that as with the women. I know, dirty old man.
Maybe it sounds like he was a beard artist.
That's it.
His beard was so you were talking about privacy, you said?
I was just mentioning that when people are sending me like genetics stuff or whatever information personal, use my email, my Proton email account, which is out of Switzerland, so it's secure, it's encrypted, and it can't be data mined by any future employer or insurance company or whatever, especially for people in North America and places like that, where they're at greater risk in that regard. Right. So
yeah, that's data privacy is a burgeoning issue.
Look, it is, and unfortunately, a lot of people sort of So does Necrokitty. It's good to see you here. Yeah, it's basically StreamYard are having, I don't know, even Bart had problems as well with StreamYard. They've been, for whatever reason, there's, weird delays and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's, yeah, in that regard. You got a fan?
Everybody's saying hello. Hello, everybody. No pants.
You knew Shelley would go there, always under the belt with Shelley.
I like no pants better than old man, but it's not up to me to choose my nickname.
Look, don't worry. They've already started. Can you see?
Yeah.
They just can't help themselves.
There it is, old man Jared.
You're the old man. I'm the uncle.
Right.
I'm the demented uncle, the two-headed uncle from Tasmania. They call us two-headed down here. Especially the mainlanders. They always give us a hard time, the mainland Australians, about Tasmanians. The two-headed monsters down in the south.
Okay.
You've never heard of that? Yeah.
No.
So I'm the demented two-headed monster from down south, uncle from, so yes.
Luke,
what do you do?
Need to get on that two-headed hairy Photoshop. Let's go.
Yes. More comments. Yes.
Secure email provider. So what was the secure email provider you use, Harry?
Proton.
Okay.
Proton Mail. Yeah. So it's a Swiss company, and they're really good in that regard. So so you don't have the issues and stuff like that. So I've got all my. That's the main one that I actually use for all the YouTubing. Let me just. You can go right here, and you can also. So that's pretty much, and you can actually log in from that. So that makes it easy for people if they can copy that. They can go to that and they can actually basically sign up, and it's way safer. They do have a slight customization where you can actually customize stuff and all that.
Okay.
Yep. Look, I don't suggest any. Go and do your own research. I do use a VPN. Not So in that regard, but you really have to go out and check yourself. You have to work out the pricing and stuff like that, and different countries. But I would focus on, I would say, European companies and North Asian companies like Japan, places like that. The reason for that is better privacy compared to the US. Unfortunately, I can't recommend a US company because unfortunately they do not actually respect people's privacy. It's simple as that. They're up to their eyeballs in basically collaborating with the NSA, and that's they've got their reasons, they've got legislation, and that's their issue. But if you're going to go through servers in the US, expect to be intercepted and compromised to some degree. How much, or how much you're willing to, that's your issue. Then again, oops, it just popped up again the other way. Yeah, so yep, I use the actual free option, but if it grows too big, I may have to go for the paid option. I don't mind. So in that regard. Yeah, so it's basically a much safer and better option for people out there. So, well, guys, Don't forget to please like and subscribe.
Oh, how I like this. Oh, I did already like the stream.
Well, any questions, guys?
Kate Apted
Just
had a
cycle
question regarding
through.
fussy teen. It's a parenting question.
Where is it?
Just after your link.
Oh, did I pass it?
Yeah, it was only like 10 comments up. Just the one right below, right immediately after the link that you sent to Proton Mail. Question
Okay.
regarding getting a fussy teen boy to embrace more fats, how to get him to eat more eggs, butter, and fattier cuts of meat. I don't know. Can you try reasoning with him that he'll feel better if he tries it?
What is this? Just bear with me. Sorry, I'm Kate. It's just StreamYard sometimes just will pop up and then. Oh, actually,
Oh, it didn't show up on StreamYard because it
no.
was it was a moderated comment that someone had to approve. So I'm reading it out of the YouTube pop-out chat.
Okay.
I didn't realize that happens on StreamYard. That's an issue.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Because YouTube automatically censors some comments just based on keywords, right? And the moderators have to approve them.
Okay. And I'm wondering what's happening. Have you approved it?
Yeah. Sorry about that, Kate Apted. On the StreamYard end of things here on the live comments, it's not showing up the area where Harry highlights things from. It's not there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I work through StreamYard and that's I do have it here on the. That's why basically I've got a couple of people now as as moderators because I just can't cover those. And I've had other cases in the past where people have put questions and at the end I've realised and it's just basically one of those. Okay. So it was further down the bottom. I was looking right up at the top. Look, there are cheap ways of doing it, and I've basically said to people where you could probably like things like cream and stuff like that is a way of actually getting fat into a child. Remember, dairy creams and stuff like that are enjoyable for kids. So combining dairy in a certain way, like even I know some friends of mine have actually used dairy and eggs and sort of like beaten the thing together and sort of made some sort of incarnation and made like an egg and dairy type, and cream type, like a pizza type thing, and then put on top different meats and stuff like that and created like a little pizza. A carnival pizza type thing, which is a sort of an egg based. So they're getting the cholesterol, they're getting all those sort of nutrients that they wouldn't get otherwise. And don't worry about the whites. Extra whites is not a problem for kids because they need the extra deuterium. They're growing, so it's not an issue. So they need that growth factor. For older people, look, if you're on a keto or low carb type diet, a lot of eggs are not a problem. So the extra deuterium you get from the whites is not an issue because it's sort of balanced out with the low deuterium levels of the yolk. So you still end up in that sort of sweet zone. So most of it is around the 115 to 118, and the sort of egg yolk sort of gravitates to about 140. But when you average it out, it gets to the sort of the top of the 130. You get some depletion anyway in your environment. It sort of pops down, so it doesn't actually end up being. It still ends up being around 120, that sweet spot anyway, in terms of that side of things. So I wouldn't actually worry. I just wanted to bring that up. But I would combine it with dairy products because it's the best. Because you're also I wouldn't worry too much about the sugars as well in dairy either, and things like that, because they're growing. So the extra deuterium is a growth factor, which is fine for young people. It's more for us, I mean, I'm 54 this year, so it's a different kettle of fish, so it's not the same. So it's those sort of considerations to think about. It's really, sneaking things in certain ways by combining things in a certain way. You know, Yep. Yeah, good combination, Shell. If it's basically fussy and teens. It's a FT. And oops,
It's an
that was
interesting
one.
problem though.
Fruit and carbs mostly.
Sort of the reverse of what I expect from
Chip.
most people. Usually, it's the younger people who are catching on to this stuff and having issue trying to convince their parents to eat that way.
It's usually when they get to look, there are still I mean, generally speaking, we do gravitate towards sweetness because it was one way of actually surviving the winter. So and it worked. Getting ourselves insulin resistant by combining a lot of fat and a lot of sugar at the same time would fatten us up. It's the best way, engaging the Randall cycle, and consuming above your caloric requirements, and actually pushing up that gradients. And the higher you push up that gradients, the more resistant you become as a consequence. And the more fruit you eat in particular, that because it's got higher deuterium and higher growth factor in it, and also it increases, you can just see from the fruitarians, they go like, man, the difference is because they don't have the sugar part, they don't engage the Randall cycle, and they end up just becoming catabolic because, but the ravenousness, that's the thing. So when you combine fat and fruit, like the perfect fattening bomb is basically cream and fruit. You can't get any better than that, and in large amounts. You'll definitely fatten up. So if you've got an issue with, not enough fat on you, that's the easiest way to do it. That's how our ancestors did it. Animal fats and, the most, sugary sort of stuff on the trees. Simple, worked for millions of years, proven to work. Acknowledgement from Luke. Yep. I'll get back to you. Yep, not a problem. Yep. Just send me through. We just want general sort of questions on here, in that regard. Okay, now what's Osman saying about robots? Robot overlords. Well, could be far from the truth. If you think about it, the elites are developing AI and are developing robotics to basically provide themselves a new loyal, force to basically, So yes, maybe 1984. It wasn't that far off. So Kitty's getting hungry. You know what? You know what cats like. They love cream. So she's thinking cream and strawberries.
Strawberries? My cats just had some liver this evening. Well, I had some liver and they got a lot of it because they know how to beg. No, because I know that it's good for them, so I can't withhold it when I'm having some.
Just more comments there about the how to sneak things into young kids' meals. It's I told you we've got a lot of dodgy parents on this, channel. Mischievous parents. Beef, 8 kilograms of beef today. Most of the trimmings already. God, well, trimmings are nice. Yes, trimmings are nice. I have to say, Ozma. I actually had last night barbecued pork chops, thick ones like that. Oh,
Ooh, that sounds nice.
and I actually pigged out on them.
Ha! Ha! All right, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I know. It's becoming too corny, isn't it? Bad boy, Harry.
No, I do appreciate a good pun.
Look, cooked egg whites, if you basically consume a massive amount of egg whites, I wouldn't recommend it unless you're a bodybuilder and you want the growth factor. It does work. It's got a lot. They're loaded in deuterium. Protein has higher levels of deuterium. Deuterium acts as a growth factor. So, in that regard, and it has, it really also, there's another side to it which has to do with the actual, the type of light that was actually absorbed by the actual, what the chook ate as well. That's sort of going into quantum biology, which I won't go into. We'll have a more in-depth sort of, I do want to make a sort of, I throw a few things around about quantum biology, but I will eventually make some sort of simple sort of stuff that's really easy to understand, like you've probably heard me about the photoreceptors, melanopsin and myonopsin, which is like the solar receptors on our bodies. So if you're in the tropics, if you're completely naked, giving me bad thoughts of indiscretions in the past in the tropics. Anyway, you can get about 2/3 of your energy from the sun. So, so in that regard, but obviously, that's the reason why the further away from the equator you are to the poles, you need more fat, because you can't get the energy otherwise. And basically also you don't get the depletion of the growth factors, so which is very important at the subatomic level we're talking about now. So because everybody talks about macros and all this, but really what's happening at the subatomic level is really where the main game is. But I will slowly introduce some of that information, that knowledge, in a way that it's not like Jack Kruse, which is much easier to understand for most people. And then, when I mention these things, you'll be able to understand what I'm going on about, and also be able to define better what target specific nutritions for different parts of the year as well, for whatever you want to achieve at that time.
Just on the egg whites thing briefly, there is I forget what it's called. There's an anti-nutrient component in raw egg whites, correct? That cooks out.
That's right. So exactly.
If you are going to eat egg whites, then it's actually better that they are cooked.
Precisely.
Right.
That's true. And also, if you eat, you could induce yourself a biotin deficiency. That's true. So we need to. Sometimes I forget about these little details, but that's important. You should always cook the whites. The yolks, you can have them raw if you want to. Mm-hmm. I sometimes have a couple raw yolks now and then, because you actually end up with greater nutrition that way. So and sometimes, like even in a smoothie, you can actually put egg yolks, but don't actually have the high blenders. Those blenders that really blend fine. No, you want sort of the sort of blenders that don't blend. So if you're going to do your smoothie and then throw in like a protein smoothie or whatever, and then throw in the eggs after and mix them in.
What's the reason for not using?
Well, you don't want to damage those lipids.
Okay.
So that's the thing. They're because the way they operate is they work very, very differently. We want to basically break up those lipids in a normal, natural way, which is what happens in our stomachs. So, proteins are broken down to amino acids, fats to fatty acids, all these, carbohydrates to simple sugars. That's what is supposed to happen in a proper functioning stomach. And that's why I say, I know one of my ancestors used to say, all disease starts in the gut. That is true, but all pathology begins with the stomach, because really it's the liver stomach nexus. If that works, everything else usually works. If you can't acidify your stomach sufficiently to break down those nutrients and absorb them, they won't absorb properly. And then you may end up with, proteins and other things and bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, getting into your bloodstream, especially if you've got leaky gut and stuff like that. So really, if you've got leaky gut and all that, you really need to fix the stomach. A lot of people focus on things like collagen, which is good, more glycine type rich foods and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, even if you fix that, if your stomach's still a mess, you're still going to be malabsorbing things and still getting things, and getting deficiencies and whatever else. So keep that in mind. It's really important in that regard. And thanks for pulling me up on the biotin potential deficiency issue, the cooked and the uncooked. Keto butter. Look, a lot of the actual butters, the biggest problem is the commercial butters. They usually, you'll find they're over processed. They usually have sugar and they usually have seed oils. So they're bad.
Yeah.
Now, you can get in some specialty shops, you can get where they will take the fresh nuts and they will produce nut butter there and then and that's probably the safest way. And then you put it in the fridge and it probably preserves it. But I have issues with a lot of nut butters because they too tend to be high in omega-6s, plant-based omega-6s. I have less problems with animal-based omega-6s. As I've said before, it's more the plant-based ones. And the other thing is they do go more rancid, more easier. So they do create more oxidation. And I don't think they're a safe food, because at least with butter from the animal, it's bound, or any small amount of PUFA that is there, which isn't much, is bound to vitamin E in a very stable way. So basically, it's stabilizing it, and there's sufficient vitamin E there to provide that electron doning effect, the antioxidant effect that those foods that you absorb require, or even when they, so that's really important that people understand that. So you've got to be very careful with a lot of these, sort of butters. Macadamia are probably safer because it's a monounsaturated fat. It only has one bond, not double bonds, so it's less prone to oxidation, but it also is vulnerable. Depending if you need to keep it in a container which is dark, in a dark place, and dry place. So that's a sort of so with those sort of things. But I have other issues with the sort of the phytosterols that are basically in a lot of the plants. That's where my concern is. And one of the biggest ways of getting a lot of plant sterols into your diet is through these seeds. They are packed. This is why they're considered superfoods, guys. But they're not. Plant sterols. Let me just say this quite. I think I've said it before once with Bart, but sometimes I forget to mention it. How bad it is. What happens is when you get over a certain threshold with plant sterols, what happens is you start absorbing them. Your body can actually clean them out at a certain threshold, but over a certain threshold, and I can't remember the exact threshold, you end up absorbing them. And when you absorb them in the bloodstream, guess where they go? They get deposited in red blood cells. Guess what they do to red blood cells that provide oxygen around the place? Well, they stiffen them. And your blood vessels, especially the small, fine blood vessels in the periphery, you've heard about periphery neuropathy and things like that, and damage where blood doesn't get, and oxygen doesn't get, and especially it happens to diabetics and people like that far more. But even in your heart, where the little, the branching out of the actual main arteries into the little thin type arteries, well, they are not, I know people think they're rounded like that, but they're usually like flattened and stuff like that in different ways, And what happens is when because animal cholesterol is like a waxy type material, less stiff. and so it can actually flex. And so the red blood vessel, let's say that is the opening, can flex like that and actually go in. Sorry, there. So if that's the little blood vessel, it can actually, the red blood vessel, can come like that and then elongate and sort of go through if it's flexible, if it's got animal cholesterol in it. But if it doesn't have that ability, and you could be reducing the level of oxygen and causing some tissue necrosis in certain parts of the body. So you don't want that shit, in your body. So in excessive amounts. This is why basically that vegan that what the fucking idiot McGregor was talking about, that was doing all these massive amounts of plant sterols and lowering his cholesterol to the massive amount, he died at 40 from from heart disease, from cardiovascular, from a heart attack. And there's actually a video, if you go 40-year-old and McGregor, just type that in and you'll actually find that video. And there's McGregor coming up with a whole lot of excuse about the essential fatty acids, and you have to supplement. We know all those supplements of essential fatty acids that the vegetards consume are just full of rancidity and other toxins that actually literally destroy your lipid rafts and all that. They're so damaging and all that. And on top of that, he was talking about the B12, and you have to supplement, and then again, you got aldehydes and stuff like that, which Bart's spoken about, and he did research with Pim on those aldehydes, and they literally rip your lipid rafts. That means those. So on the cell, you will have those like rafts where the receptors sit on. And basically, if you damage those or don't get enough cholesterol animal, they actually misaligned. They don't sit properly. So even to absorb like nutrients through properly and all that, like the GLUT4 receptors and stuff like that, they start not working properly. This is all part of, creating cells that are not non-functional, properly senescent and damaged, by having these inappropriate things. So it's a cascade of a lot of differing things that actually happen inside our bodies. So, when it comes to plant stuff like that, fuck, get rid of it. It's not worth it. Look, I know you may be doing keto and love it, and I did keto and I enjoyed it, but I've just progressively moved more and more away from plants, and and it's been to improving my health. So yes. Yep. Comment.
He's just commenting on the automatic blocking that goes on with the keywords for the chat.
You really? For nuts? Oh, in terms of nuts. Oh, the PC. Oh, we can't call people nuts. Oh, God, I'm out. These AIs, because it's an AI, it's not actually a human.
Oh.
It's actually an AI that's getting disturbed, Fucking hell, they're going to become so weird, They'll start talking like when Frankie talks like a vegan. That'll be concerning. My son has severe hemophilia and spent a lot of time in hospital. Relief, lollies, and emotional attachment to food. Yeah, look, kids can have that. And, and the other thing is with when it comes to hemophiliacs, you've got issues with your red blood cells. So, the last thing is you want really to eliminate all plants. Because I've heard a number of people that have actually had a number of improvements by going very hardcore carnivore and plant-free completely when it comes to this sort of stuff. I don't have any personal experience. I can't actually comment from a personal. I can only comment about other people's experiences. But yeah, as I know you're struggling, like a lot of mothers, a lot of parents. Yeah, the only thing I can say is, well, you need to have an honest conversation with your kid and basically say, well, do you want to be suffering like this for the rest of your life? Or do you want to basically stop it from happening? Do you want the pain or do you want the joy? Do you want to have a more joyful life? And so it's really having that, honest conversation with your kid, because pressuring is not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They need to understand what's actually happening inside them.
Mm-hmm.
You're the mother. They trust you. You're not, you've got your heart's in the right place, and so you need to have that serious conversation. And he'll improve. Because because remember, there are quite carnivorous populations in areas of Africa, and they do have a number of blood-related type of disorders. But until they actually move from those parts of the world where they're eating traditional foods and move to and no longer hunt and stuff like that, and move to places like North America, immigrate, that's when they get into trouble. Because they're no longer eating that ancestral food, and that's where the problem lies. And ancestral food tends to be low carbohydrate, less refined, and more animal based. Like the K word?
Kale?
Not sure. Maybe. My father once grew that. God. We're pretty lighthearted. We're pretty lighthearted on this.
It says Kale in the Yale font, and I used to wear it, and I now feel like it's offensive.
You need to modify it. You need to, you can send it to the, and actually modify it.
Right, just put no Kale.
Oh well, that's one option.
Kale sucks.
No. That's even better. Now you're being creative in your thinking. If you're trying to heal a gut and repair the gut lining, what sort of foods would you suggest? Well, bone broths, I would suggest. Things like, that are collagen rich, eggs. Now, there can be problems with some people with eggs. Usually when they've got a gut issue, they've also got a liver issue. That FXR receptor that I talk about, that is important in the recycling of bile acids. And MK4, which is menaquinone 4, which is the animal form of vitamin K2, which is involved in the biosynthesis and regulation of the actual part of that process and regulatory process. So you need to basically probably go and do a liver test and see where your liver is. So you've got an idea, where is my liver at the moment? If you've basically got issues with your liver, then I would recommend milk thistle, because that actually helps sort that out. Another thing is lipoic acid. Get the liposomal form if you can, which is basically, if you check some of my other videos, I usually mentioned that there is on iHerb, there is a liposomal lipoic acid, and that actually can get past the actual gut, so it can get in without any issues. So even if you've got malabsorption issues, you'll get it in, because you need a liposomal form, because if you use a regular, it won't get through. If you've got gut issues, you can't absorb it, because the fat soluble vitamin, this is encapsulated in a lipid membrane, which is 25 nanometers. So it will get through a blood-brain barrier everywhere. So it's actually quite good, and it's very healing, because it actually was used in the University Hospital in Texas. Was it Austin? I can't remember. One of the places it was either Houston or Austin, Texas. And they basically, people had come in with magic mushroom, damage to their liver. So they consumed. They were thinking that they were consuming magic mushrooms, but they ended up boiling also some mushrooms into that mix, which were toxic, and they actually did damage to their liver. And they went to the and one of the doctors was, let's say, he always thought outside the box, luckily for them, and basically used high doses of lipoic acid and restored their liver function. So lipoic acid, which is the highest concentration of lipoic acid, usually are found in things like your brain, things like your organ meats and stuff like that. So, if you eat organ meats, yes, you don't need the supplements. But if you've got malabsorption issues, you've got no option, because you're not going to be getting enough. So that's why I recommend as once you heal, yes, you can go to the animal organs and stuff like that. But, until you heal, you basically sometimes need to use a supplemental option. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is, check your pancreas as well, because sometimes it's usually stomach, liver, pancreas, and your gut. They're all a mess, and they need to sort of, so you may need to use enzymes as well, like digestive enzymes and stuff like that, to help as well. That transition. And I know that a lot of people, that when they usually go to, because they've got malabsorption of bile, when they go to a carnivore keto diet, they usually end up with diarrhea. And that's the reason. I transitioned because I just eliminated, because I always had animal foods in my diet. I just eliminated more plants as I progressed. So I never really had those effects. But a lot of people that have come from a plant-based or from a SAD diet primarily and all that, their transition is really just so fast, and they've never had so much fat in their diet. And that's when, these sort of, issues, loose stools, sort of happen. But it's really because your liver's not functioning properly, and you're basically through the colon, you're not recycling bile properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem through this FXR receptor. So you need basically allopoic acid, milk thistle, and you need MK4, and so you need to get those in there. Milk thistle is, a good quality one. You don't have to have any liposome; they don't even exist or anything like that. It's less of an issue. The compounds will absorb. Generally speaking, they just sort of drift in, like anything else, like bacteria and proteins and all the other things sort of that don't get absorbed properly can get into your gut and cause leaky gut. Well, when you take something like a herbal type thing, it will get through really easy as well. So you don't need special preparations, that are costly. So don't go for that sort of bullshit. But when it comes to gut malabsorption, obviously, the key critical thing is to fix the acidity of the stomach. So you also need things like acidifiers. So things that acidify. Obviously, animal foods do create more acidity in that regard, which is good, because that's what your stomach's supposed to work on a acidic level of around 1.5. That's what we're designed, by either your creator or nature, whichever you subscribe to. So in that regard, so that's what science tells us. That's what we can only go on, So yes, so fix the stomach and the organs around it, and usually everything works then. Things fall into place. Believe me, yes, it takes a bit of time, because when you've taken a couple of decades destroying your gut, it's not going to happen immediately. So you need additional, and I actually do use things like, I would put myself in a more ketotic state to have more, ketones in there, because beta hydroxybutyrate, the butyric component, can actually feed, your actual entire gut can actually be provided with the appropriate energy that it needs, which is in the short chain fatty acid through those ketone bodies. And that's really what is important, to provide the energy for healing. So, it really means eliminating all sugars, all fiber, because fiber basically is it has basically small little hooks like things, and it literally cuts in and actually aggravates the actual lining of your gut. So you don't want that stuff at all. So you want to get rid of all that and try and heal and acidify. I'd use the sort of meat that I would gravitate towards would be grounded, minced meat, pretty much. For the reason is it's much easier to absorb, in that regard. So sort of focus on those sort of things of, slowly healing everything. The other thing is, if you can actually also mince some organ meats in there, would be a good idea, because the additional copper, okay, you may not like organ meats. try some crustaceans, or maybe calamari squid, which has got a good copper to zinc ratio. So that extra, because you need those sort of nutrients in order to provide, the right sort of mechanisms to build your DAO as well. Tallow is really important because it also stimulates, it's got a lot of monounsaturated fat, which stimulates DAO production. And that's another important part of basically closing those junctions, improving those junctions, and also reducing the histamine sort of effects as well. So keep that in mind. But obviously, if you start eating these sort of things, because of the malabsorption issues and all that, so it takes a while, so salt things more, because salt actually helps with that acidification, and also and also things like what else, I normally would not recommend apple cider vinegar, but I would basically, my meats and stuff like that, I would basically marinate them in apple cider vinegar. And the reason for that is because you want that extra acidity, because you would probably have some level of H. pylori potentially, growing in your stomach, which means it naturally inhibits acidification as well. So, you need to basically cop the, you may, if you've got a severe, like, you get a lot of burping when you eat, that's a giveaway that basically you've got probably an infection in your stomach. And when you feel a bit of pain in your stomach, definitely. So you may need a course of antibiotics to deal with that problem. It's, you don't kill off entirely, even with antibiotics, the H. pylori, but the whole idea is to suppress it to the level where you can actually rebuild your acidity. And that's the key thing. And I would look at, a number of things like HCl and stuff like that, to add additional, possibly bile salts as well, because all that's not working properly. So you can sort of get it going, in that regard. But don't go really heavy on the bile salts, because that will create loose stools as well. So you've got to be a bit careful, gradually, small amounts, gradually, these sort of things, as your body adjusts and gets used to. Look, these things are not you can't answer them easy. And if you do need somebody to sort of like coach you, consider Bart Kay, and going and doing a consultancy with Bart Kay. And because I don't do any consultancy, sorry, but I have a day job, and I work quite a few hours, so I don't have the luxury. I can just provide you that general information. He could basically then navigate you and through those stages, because you probably need somebody to basically help you along, to make sure you're on the right track and stuff like that, So, yeah, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And then
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you were saying.
I was just going to say, I think if you're moving on there, just so you put the question down, you touched on a really important aspect midway through that answer, where you said that, the damage didn't occur overnight, so the solution won't occur overnight either. That's something that I think a lot of people overlook. They get impatient trying to solve these issues, and it takes a lot of tenacity, and it can take a lot of time to heal some of these things.
Yep. Look, for me, from my cardiovascular days, and to get enough regression, and to keep the new arteries that were put in, to keep them clean, and also to basically get some regression, that took about a decade. It took a lot of effort. It took a high doses of MK4 to basically decalcify soft tissue, and a whole lot of other strategies, which I'll do a video at some future date, and even show you me with a big fat gut in hospital and stuff like that. So, yeah, entertaining. And the big scissor. God, yeah, I know. It's sort of receding. It's not as visible now, but in the early days it was. And on top of that, they put like a tape. They will actually put like a tape from top to bottom on it, and you can actually see the skin hasn't joined completely, so you can see the, sort of coming together, and it's just, you're showering, you're looking at that, and you're going,
barbaric.
What the fuck happened to me? So Yeah.
Well, you're a long
I,
way from there now.
oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I don't wish it on anyone, even my worst enemy. It's not an experience that, people. Yeah, that's the, I usually get taurine. Now, taurine is primarily if you're over 40, in particular, if you're over 65, you're crazy not to, because the actual biosynthesis of taurine actually declines rapidly after 65. So the quickest way of getting sarcopenia is basically not having enough taurine and slightly, as an older person, reducing your protein intake. That's what happened to my father, and we reversed it. So between 65 to 70 to his mid-70s, he basically lost a lot of muscle mass. And since then, we've reversed it, and he's put on about all the muscle that he lost, plus, so from where he started, when he was starting to recover, it's about, we sort of estimate, well, he estimates that it's about 50%. I can only go on what he estimates. It looks like it's grown by 50%. It's not as big as when he was much younger, when he was a Boilermaker welder. He had, big muscles. But he doesn't, no longer, he has the strength now at 85 of a 60-year-old. So he lifts small amounts of weights, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. And basically he uses both taurine, and he consumes far more protein than he used to. So he eats meat every day, where before he was eating once a week. So he's seen massive changes to his body composition and strength. So, yes, taurine is really important. If you're up to your mid-30s, I wouldn't bother, honestly. You'd be wasting your money, unless you're basically a big bodybuilder and you want to, really put on a lot of, because it's an amino transporter. So it improves the efficiency of transferring aminos. But you still need leucine and the other anabolics to sort of push, that growth at the end of the day. And I did send that information to Frankie as well, about how to build stronger muscles, and some of the old timers and their method, and Arnie's sort of method as well, which is basically very anabolic. I mean, Arnie basically they used to have all these shitloads of egg whites, some egg yolks in there as well, and also dried egg. So that's very anabolic because, and also they used to combine it with a lot of milk. So they used to create this sort of milk egg type product, which they used to consume. That's how Arnie made his big muscles and stuff like that before the days when all these other powders and everything else existed. So, if you want to make gains, yeah. So more eggs, and dairy and weights.
So the tinnitus bit is relevant for me because I also have tinnitus, and it's not from hearing loss. So I've had my hearing checked. The last time I had it checked was a year ago, and I had like a very excellent hearing anyway, especially for my age range.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't suffered any sort of trauma since then, so I'm sure it's not from hearing loss now. But it's come and gone. It's intermittent for me. And it's actually just kicked back up in the past week or so for the first time in about a year, and that really has me quite bothered. So I'd be interested in your take on any of that.
This ear of mine used to get ringing as well. Since I've been taking taurine for some time now, I did show last time. I won't bother again. I showed that rat study. Now I know it's a rat study, but they did deliberately put them under a lot of stress for days upon end, really high pitch sounds, to deliberately cause some damage to their ears. So it was actually physical damage. We're not talking about some woo-woo stuff. No, actual physical damage to the rat's ears. And then one was supplemented in their normal chow with taurine, high dose taurine, and the others were not. After 6 months, they had massive improvements in their hearing. Now, obviously, when the hearing issue happens the younger you are and you use taurine, the better. So the older you are, it takes a hell of a lot longer. And if you're, like over 65 and all that, you may only get some improvement, not a lot of improvement, because there's a lot of other factors that go into it, how much cholesterol you've got in your diet, all sorts of factors. Just a supplement on its own is not going to be miraculous. We're not talking about miracles here. God comes down and taps you and, you're done. No. So let's not confuse the stuff, but it is helpful. It will improve. Some people get complete remission. So from my heavy metal days, I'm fine. I don't have any ringing in this ear anymore.
That's nice.
But if I actually get rid of the taurine supplement and don't consume it, I can tell you, in a couple of months, I will start getting the occasional here and there of ringing. So yeah, it seems to basically, it hasn't completely eliminated it, but each time that I've tried that and experimented, I've actually noticed if it comes back, but it comes not as bad as it was before. So it's far less. So it's probably healing, but at a very slow pace, because the older you get, the more damage you've got around your body to heal. And especially from my indiscretions and all that, I've got plenty of damage to fix, I can tell you. So it doesn't go, and you can't have too much because it causes all sorts of other issues as well. A number of these things you have to be careful. Need to remind people, when it comes to these supplements, that I've actually, they're amino acids. So they are naturally occurring things. So they're not basically some woo-woo stuff out there. It's stuff that we get in our diet normally. Taurine is high in especially beef, So, but the problem is, we don't get enough from beef, and we don't synthesize enough as we age. So, you really have to sort of supplement, which is, if you want to stay younger, and more vibrant and stuff like that, it's, you sort of sometimes have to use some exogenous aminos, which is what I do. Now, citrulline, on the other hand, is something that actually goes, for people that are unaware, it actually can bypass the liver and get into the bloodstream and then convert into L-arginine. And L-arginine is the precursor to nitric oxide synthesis. And nitric oxide basically dilates your blood vessels. So one, it actually improves your blood vessel functioning, which a person like myself definitely needs with my past indiscretions and condition. But the other thing is also that it also, because it lowers your blood pressure, you got to be careful. And a lot of these, like taurine, a lot of these have a lowering of blood pressure to a different degree. But L-citrulline definitely are much higher. So you got to be careful. So if you're on blood pressure medication, you need to basically take smaller amounts, then go and get yourself checked with your doctor, and then basically adjust, the amount and all that. I wouldn't go too high. 2 grams would be the maximum per day. I would basically go half initially, then get checked out if I'm on blood pressure medication, get the doctor to adjust them. I'm not, but if you are, and then basically step it down, because these sort of medications, they have to be stepped down. We don't want anybody passing out and stuff like that.
What would be the dosage of taurine that you would take daily?
What I usually take, I usually mix it up. So one day I'll take 1 gram, next day I'll take 2 grams. And I usually take it at a differing time, because sometimes because I'm doing my fasting as well, so I don't want aminos in there. Mm-hmm. And so I have to sort of time it so it's not going to be at the same time. So to create the sort of the 18-hour window or the 16-hour window, so I have to place it at a different spot, which is fine. It doesn't bother me. It sort of works for me in that regard. Hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold
Is
on,
that you,
hold on.
Harry? Are you the nanomotor overlord?
Mate, I definitely am. Terminator Harry, and don't you guys forget it. Where have I got it? Here. God. Going to get the further folders and all that, and it's Dean there.
Right, that's you as the T1000.
That's it. I like that. Initially, I actually said to that, I was sort of wishing that I had the sort of blade type thing, but actually the fist thing is actually I actually like that better. Yeah, thanks, Luke. You're sort of you're thinking ahead of me on that one. Okay. Yep. That was a good. We need people need to ask these questions because we need to basically, air them out and discuss them. And wonderful. I just tap down on the actual, the bar, and what does it do? It jumps to the bottom. This happens actually also when Bart does it, and it absolutely annoys him. He just doesn't make an issue of it. He just sort of acts like nothing has happened. But well. Let me get back up there. I think I may have gone past.
It was at 55 minutes past the hour. If you just do Command F or whatever in your browser, you can search for keyword.
Yep. I can see. Yep. So we've got a few questions in there. I just realised. I suspect that's directed to you, Jared.
Yes, yeah, I had mentioned that my cat's got some liver tonight because I had some liver tonight.
See, cats are smarter than vegans. I've been telling you that for ages.
They know what's good. Put it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It works. I've been trying to put some weight on with milk and strawberry homemade shakes daily. Yeah, Randall cycle definitely works. But actually, a much healthier way of actually doing it is eggs and with a lot of eggs rather than strawberries. But it does look if you're basically also doing some weights at the same time, then you'll direct that to more muscle mass, which is what you really want anyway. Thanks, mate. Hey, not only biochemistry, also quantum biology. But I keep that for private moments, just to annoy some of my friends. Mind you, if he's eat better than me today. He had beef head, sheep's brains, beef liver and kidney, bone marrow, and goose neck. On quantum biology. Look, I will. I'm going to make a series which is going to be basically on light. So it'll basically go light, because you guys I've been speaking a bit about the lighter and sort of understanding how basically UV comes out of complex 1 in the inner mitochondrial membrane. It's very energetic. That's why it creates a lot of reactive oxygen species, which is what sugar does. But look, doing a whole lot of things which baffle everyone isn't useful. So it'll be a series like light, water, electromagnetism. So, and then going into deuterium, because if I go to deuterium and I don't cover these other ones, deuterium won't make sense. So I have to go through these sort of stages to get you guys familiar on how these electromagnetic forces and also light, the different light frequencies, how they actually work and operate inside our mitochondria and inside, and how they're actually the receptors that exist to detect them and to basically synchronize the body. And it all has to do with the circadian rhythms and how food should be eaten in light, not in darkness. There's a lot of these sort of issues that are very important in health. I mean, I can't remember who I actually who was doing night shifts. They can remind me, but basically I told her to basically switch to a different eating pattern in the daytime and all that, and then fast throughout the night when she was doing a night shift. And she lost a couple of some weight at the same time, and her health improved. Because she was no longer out of her, no longer a mismatch with her circadian rhythms. I mean, still her night shift type work wasn't optimal or perfect, but at least it basically, you got to thank mate. At least it was healthier the way she was doing it than in the past. Yeah, eggs are good. Yeah, my sister does 3 eggs. I usually do about 4 to 6 eggs, sometimes even up to 8. So, there's a lot of good food good nutrition in eggs. So, somebody likes carnivore smoothie as an omnivore. I mean, I know Luke's still does a bit of an omnivore type approach. We're trying to coax him out of
smoothie. Like, I don't know, like bone broth and egg yolks or something like that.
Oh, look, you can use like dairy products, dairy products, things like that. If you're basically you want a bit of anabolic, some additional anabolic side of that, you can also throw a bit of honey in there. Get a good quality. It's an animal product at the end of the day. But I don't usually recommend honey unless you're actually using it medicinally, which can be really good. But yeah, so I have my reservations on continuous use because of the fructose, and you basically, it's especially in winter, it's not healthy to consume. But if you're basically trying to get gains and stuff like that, and you're doing bodybuilding and all that, it can be useful. So it depends. As I say, horses for courses.
Yeah, I've experimented a little bit with a bit of honey before the gym sort of thing to see if it would help with just increasing my energy levels, I guess, for the workout. Yep. And it does a little bit, but I don't do it regularly.
Yep. So Rosaline, her mother's 66 and her thyroid levels are high, and has been watching the vegan propaganda and thinks that the oatmeal lowered. Okay, yeah. My dad's blood sugar. LOL. Any suggestions? Well, how far down the rabbit hole of the vegan propaganda is she? So it's a hard one, because usually, because people could say, well, I take this supplement, but sometimes these supplements can have side effects, and I usually say to people, well, if you're doing something inappropriate, you're either going to get low thyroid or really high thyroid. Both conditions are not healthy. But to try, sometimes people have to suffer a bit longer before they realize that they need to be on a species appropriate diet. And it's really hard. I don't know your mother, and I wouldn't know how to basically convince her. The only thing that I could say to you is, on my discussion panel, second from the bottom, if you go to my channel, there's actually a part there. It's called the myths and falsehood of veganism, and it goes to a number of things: how apes behave in the wild, how the different types of propaganda about the gut microbiome, and how Prevotella, which is the dominant bacteria that actually grows when you're doing a plant-based diet, how it's pro-inflammatory. And I've got the study there, and basically the sort of bacteria that grow that usually hence the moron Paul basically says is bad for you. Actually, there's a study there that actually shows that those meat bacteria, when they increase, they actually suppress, they actually reduce inflammation, or interleukin 6 and things like that. They lower those. So if that doesn't convince her, and right at the end, there's a lady that was basically for multiple years who is still an animal activist, this woman. So she hasn't changed, but she's become carnivorous because she realizes that basically there is that life cycle, that carbon and life and death cycle in nature, and basically we're part of it, not separate from it, sitting on a pedestal moralizing to the rest of the animal kingdom. So, and it also, there's a bit in there that actually goes and explains some of the studies. It explains how epidemiology is so bullshit. It talks about the Bradford Hill criteria, how, it's very basic. I don't go to the level that Bart goes with his statistics and stuff like that, because that's not useful for most people. And most of it is just go over their heads. I just try and make it in a more simplistic way to explain the idiocies and the illogicality of some of those arguments. I demystify a number of those arguments that they put out there. There's a Paul Mason, Dr. Paul Mason's sort of one on the gut microbiome as well, and about fiber. So there's a link for that, and the fiber myth, and I go through all these things because these people need to see these things. They need to look at the best science and go, well, oh, okay, I'm doing it wrong. Because and they have to do it themselves. They have to empower themselves and take responsibility and take ownership. It's really hard as I know, because I know from my own father. Let's say he had seen my results, me getting better and all that, and realized Harry's probably onto something. And started becoming more inquisitive and started asking me, what are you doing? And then I started saying, well, I said, look at your muscles. Doesn't seem your veggie garden's really helping you. So basically I started, making him realize that he needed some other foods to incorporate in his diet. And so it's sometimes a slow process, so don't expect to just literally steamroll in and get her to change everything. It's not going to happen. She'll basically just pull up the drawbridge and won't listen, and you'll get nowhere. The best thing you can do is flicker the link, to that, or just, I don't mind if you use my information. I say, I'm not like Frank, I just say, take it, use it, pin it against your name anywhere on the web, get the information out, because we need to save a lot of people. So put it in an email it to your mother. Let her sort of, engage with that information, and then she'll come back to you. It's much better when she comes back to you with an informed, because initially she may go, oh, and then she'll look at some of it and go, oh, that seems, let me just check that. Curiosity. Let her become curious. I always say, it's like with kids, let them become curious, telling them you're not going to get very far. Making them curious, you'll get further ahead, and then they will come back to you with additional questions. So I hope that helps. How to manipulate your oldies and your kids. Oh, well, it does work. No, it's actually omega-9s, monounsaturated fat primarily. So it's it's not basically PUFA. It has very low levels of PUFA, of LA, of omega-6s, but it does have a lot of oleic acid, which is a MUFA, as they call it, MUFA. So the monounsaturated fatty acids that are in there are much more stable, and that's why a lot of keto people consume them. And but the problem is the sterols. It's the plant-based cholesterol, which is the problem for your red blood cells. So as I said, some plants as a treat or for medicinal purposes is one thing. When you basically sort of overdo it, that's when it becomes a problem. So it's the majority of them are, probably the only. Remember the seeds, they've got anti-nutrients in them, and remember that they also have additional deuterium, because basically they need it as a growth factor. And deuterium, actually, remember I've been telling you, actually, if you put more neutrons into that protein gradients and basically you overload it, you end up basically that nanomotors, which Luke loves to remind me of, can get damaged or destroyed. So what does that mean? That means your mitochondria are either reduced in their ability to undertake oxidative phosphorylation, or they're damaged and they can't do anything. They're buggered. They're dead in the water, which basically means then, the lower that threshold, the energy production happens, then you're in trouble. So yes, so you've got to be very, very careful consuming excessive amounts of these sort of plant compounds and all that. So keep that in mind. Yeah, a lot of people, so yeah, and they're expensive.
Yeah,
they harm you.
Thing about macadamia nuts, for sure. If you're gonna eat macadamia nut butter, then you should just buy whole macadamia nuts and grind it yourself fresh. But that's if you're going to eat macadamia nut butter. I'm not saying you should do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But they are pricey. To get like a cup of butter here in the wintertime, it could cost you close to $50.
Oh, look, it's even though Australia produces a lot of macadamia oil and nuts and all, here they're expensive as well. Not as expensive as like place in Canada and place in Europe, where I know they are more pricey because I've actually bought them in the past when I've been in those countries. But and I know North America I've never visited, but I know from other people that have told me. But Europe I have, and it's they're not good, and on top of that, they end up can't. Just to remind him, it's crazy how people think plants are magical. Well, I had a talk to my mum out of the old folks medicine of eggplants and orange juice to lower cholesterol. Yeah, I know. My dad's cholesterol is genetically high. He may be a hyper responder, in that regard. There is a proportion of the population that are hyper responders, but it's irrelevant. because even the Framingham study showed it quite clearly that after 30, and it is an epidemiological study, but just in general observational terms, the people that had the lowest cholesterol, only 73% were still alive after 30 years, all-cause mortality. Guess how many people were still alive with the highest, not the middle range, the highest cholesterol. Want to take a punt on that one, Jared?
Was it all of them?
No, slightly less. But very close, 93%.
Wow. Yeah.
20% difference in terms of, just when you're looking at one variable and all-cause mortality. So at the end of the day, are you alive or dead 20 years earlier? You know what I mean? So, and so, yeah, it's nonsense. But the problem is, a lot of those studies are highly confounded in terms of the other variables, like when you look at CVD, diabetes and all that, and insulin resistance, because the way they did a lot of the measures, they are highly confounded. And, Pim's been doing a lot of information on the Kraft, method of measuring sort of insulin resistance and stuff like that. And that is the best method. And I sort of let her know about, the interview that Kraft did with Ivor Cummings. That was done a couple of years back. So people should go and check that out because, he's an old geezer, but, that he's passed away. But his insights and understanding way back then, how important was to the proper way, the proper science. That just shows between how some scientists are charlatans, and some scientists are, they go to the nth degree to work out the best methodology to basically work out what's happening inside us mechanistically, what is happening in our bodies. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want to know. That's what serves us, helps us to basically make the changes. Yeah, look, it's basically just years and years of brainwashing. It's like the low fat stuff, same thing. Yes, God, was I brainwashed as well. So we're all victims.
Yeah, I fit Dave Feldman's lean mass hyperresponder model for sure. So suffice it to say that I'm not afraid of my cholesterol levels.
Mm. Yeah. G'day, honest. And I have one of your keto friend who's done well on it, cured her Hashimoto's. And if you think about the vegetards always say that keto will cause you Hashimoto's or thyroid problems, it's BS. And lost weight, yeah, you definitely lose weight on a ketogene, but she's fat phobic and thinks healthy fat means olive oil and nut oils and meat is as bad. Yeah, look, I know it's the brainwashing really worked. It's very successful. We should consider it one of the greatest non-achievements in the 20th century, latter part of the life.
She did keto for a year, obviously did keto with some level of success if she lost weight, and it cured her thyroid. But she's still fat
lost
phobic.
Weight.
That's
crazy, isn't it?
How?
In terms of animal fats, but
still,
zombie mukbang. What she's actually saying is basically it's primarily that's where the focus is. The thing is, yes, you can get ketone production from even PUFA and MUFA in these sort of seed oils and stuff like that, and plant oils, but the reality is not a very healthy way. and also you're getting those plant sterols, which aren't healthy either, and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really common pitfall for keto that people end
Yeah.
up just. I don't even necessarily know if it's because they believe that animal fats are bad necessarily for most people. It's just that the plant fats are readily available. They're in a bottle on the
Yep.
store shelf, and
Precisely.
you just pour it on
Convenience.
your food afterward or whatever. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did when I did keto too. I didn't know better.
You're not the only one. We're all
Yeah,
into convenience. We're humans. We're lazy. You know,
that was
we, we
plant-based
we're
keto by
always
accident.
we're always looking for the easiest option and the easiest approach and all that. We always slip up. You know, it's just in our nature. You know, the difference is me and Bud are just honest about it. Everybody else sort of hides. Oh, I do it clean. I'm like you know, some saint or whatever. No, nobody is. It's all BS. Everybody basically drops off the wagon. Everybody mucks up. Everybody basically has their indiscretions and cheat days or whatever. Everybody has a day where they feel like rat shit and they succumb to, let's say, that little devil on the side that says, "Go for it, go, get the carb, get the carb, get the show." You know, so you know, just ask Pim. She knows all about that sort of psychological side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like her. That's her expertise.
Yes, it is. It is. You know, people should, if they haven't, go and check out her site and also, you know, like her stuff and subscribe because she's really, she's doing some really good things recently on, you know, on insulin resistance and stuff like that, which is really, and some nuanced stuff as well, which a lot of other people aren't doing out there. You know, so that's the stuff that I find really quite fascinating and quite good. So yeah, it's sort of past things and stuff like that. And also like when you have an indiscretion the next day, you know, when you check your blood, you know, sugar sort of level, it sort of pops up. It can go above, like Nick's was staying above, he has a lot of difficulty bringing it below 6 millimoles. Where other people are able to bring it below sort of that threshold. I'll actually show you mine. I don't have any strips of responsibility. Oh, fuck, you know, God, you know, I said, Petra, you can't do that. And he goes, oh, you know, what? I can't have a bit? I go, you're a diabetic, mate. Oh, God, you know, it's
exhausting caring about people's well-being.
It is. You know, sometimes you just best to give them the information and hope they'll come back for additional questions.
Yeah. Yeah, while Harry's gone, I'll just continue to plug Pim's channel. If any of you haven't subscribed to her channel, she's Art K's partner in crime, and she does an excellent job understanding and explaining the science behind why you should change your behavior, and then also helping you understand why you might struggle to do that. And by change your behavior, I mean your eating habits.
Oops. Sort of that. Don't know whether people can see. So that was ketones. That was pretty shit low. Oops.
Is this just this is a strip reader?
Yeah, these are the keto ones. I was doing ketones at this stage. And that's basically 4.2 for sugar, ketones 2.9, 4.6 millimoles, 3.6 in ketones. I was fasting through those days, so I was actually pushing up when I was eating. My ketones came back down to about 1.2, you know, so that was a couple of months back. 1.6 in terms of ketones. Let me just, oh, come on, where is it? We're all pretty, 4.9 for blood sugar, 4.1 for blood sugar, 3.3 ketones, 4.7 millimoles. There it is. That was one of the days. Oops. 6.4.
Is that your blood sugar or ketones?
Yeah, that was my blood sugar. So, and that was basically my ketones, because I did my ketones first and all that. So my ketones had dropped to 0.8 quite dramatically the next day on that indiscretion, and my blood sugar levels went up to 6.4, which is like pre-diabetic.
Was that ice cream or something?
Ice cream, chocolate, and a couple of other things. And see, it sort of came back after, so it improved, in that regard, back to 5.5, and it was just heading down again, so 1.5, then 0.46, so it's sort of, I'll just get out of that so we don't use too much power, because I'll need to put a new battery in. So it's a simple device with, simple, basically, I've got heaps of stuff like that, but I've got no strips. I'm out of that because I gave more to my brother-in-law. So anyway, but, it was basically, I do periodically, I was doing some like deep ketosis type things and experiments, and that's why I was basically getting it. But that one day you can actually see even the following day I was still at 5.5, and it took me a third day to get down to 4.6. Remember what Bart said about that, like 19 hours plus, like 24, and it can be like 1 or 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like with a Randall cycle and all that, for things to normalize again. Well, there you go. You can go from very low levels to very high levels. And then, because obviously I engaged the Randall cycle, because I was, throwing sugar and fat in there like there was no tomorrow. And then, so it takes a while to basically correct those indiscretions. So, and even last night when I actually was down at my mate's place, had some food and all that, and some wine, because I was celebrating my sister, my younger sister, is moving to Perth. I mentioned it last week. So,
and you're so happy to see her go that you had to have a drink.
And hope she doesn't listen to this one, because she does occasionally after the fact. I'll probably get a rude message. I heard what you said.
Well, she can get mad at me. I said it. You disagreed.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Blame Jarrett.
Yeah.
When all else fails, blame Jarrett. Exactly, Harry. I've often thought of would have changed things big time for me. Yeah, exactly. Your thinking was in the right place. Now you just have to work out the manipulation part, and also the story. Sit down, have a chat, and convince him. Yep, me, all of us. Look, it takes time to learn a lot of this sort of stuff. So we're here as a community, helping each other. Just learn more and all that. And sometimes, you may have to ask the question twice, and sometimes we may come up with something a bit new and novel. We heard something, came across something, a new study, some new information, just slightly something deeper. You want to answer that?
Oh, that was in reference to my Kale comment with my shirt and everything. I guess the comments are about an hour behind.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah, so I guess Kale would have been a good garnish for butchers. I mean, it still is. I still see butchers do that, but
It's cheap.
It's so thick and cheap. It doesn't wilt very quickly. You can get a day or two out of it.
Mm.
Still stays green looking. Not the type of thing that I want to shove into my body for quote unquote nutrition, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I had just suggested Nina Teichol's because for me,
exactly.
learning about proper nutrition started with learning about the fallibility of the status quo nutrition dogma.
Exactly.
And understanding just how shaky the foundations of all of that are.
Yeah, look, it's crazy how the fat phobia, Luke's mentioning about his mum's still worried about fat and all that. The fat phobia is so ingrained in our culture. It's not a joke. It's pervasive and difficult to basically convince people. It's only when people basically get into some difficulty that so
Luke just posted a very fine work of
yeah,
art.
plants will do that for to you. Okay, 119. So I know where I'm at. So where to come back? Is it right at the bottom? Oops. Hold on. I can't. That's right. I can't. I always forget. I can't do that. I have to go to actual web. Yeah, I have to go to the web page exactly. It's just it's not easy to actually do it. Perfect. I got to show this one. This is good. You gotta love it. I even love the hat. Oh, the hat's perfect as well. It's thanks, mate. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Do you guys in the chat think that the two-headed version of Harry ever argues with himself?
I'm right. No, I'm right. You're wrong. Hey, the sort of private conversations, I won't go into them. They're private. That's a good one, actually. Oh, thanks, Luke. That is funny. He's even got the Tasmanian flag. Mate, you've outdone yourself. That's the state flag of Tasmania. Perfect. Brilliant. I'll have to use that somewhere. Look, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at, at the end of the day?
He says one head blames the other for cheating on carnivore.
That's it. Exactly. well, yeah, exactly. Yes, I always blame the other head. It's not me. It's you know who. And then it takes a couple of days, as you can see, to rectify that problem. Anyway, now, where were we? God, we are quite behind, aren't we? Don't tell them where I work, Luke. Delete that. Somebody admits that they are. Yeah. That's what happened from heavy metal on that ear. The other ear was sort of fine. It was on this side. Yeah. It's one of those things.
Yeah, I was in a band for a few years, and even though we wore earplugs, it's still quite loud. And I know that
definitely
tinnitus can kind of set in from after the fact. So.
One or two. Yep. Yeah, look, it's you pay for it later on. But when you're young, you're enjoying yourself. And that was quite a few years back now.
Yeah, my tinnitus is tricky for me just because it comes and goes, or it has come and gone in the past, I should say. So I'll get habituated to it, and then it'll disappear for long periods, and then it comes back. And once it comes back, it creates. I have a hard time not engaging with that anxiety and despair over it again. It's like I have to relearn to rehabituate to it again.
Just remember that basically taurine isn't a panacea. It will, for me, it's completely, gone, eliminated it, the problem. But, if you've got more damage, more severe and all that, and how long you've had that damage as well, will take longer to heal. Remember those rats, they did it, and then they basically, after 6 months, they gave them, so in rat years, that's about, let's say somebody lives to, what's the average age for a human to live? About 80. So that's the age of 20. So they induced it at a young age, and then at the age of 20, equivalent to human years, because 2 years they live, the rats, you basically got the taurine and corrected the problem. Now, if somebody's basically had for, more damage happening right through a number of decades until they're 50, 60 years old, don't expect miracles, guys. As we said earlier, these things help, but they're not miraculous, So keep that in mind. People have different results. We won't get the same results when it comes to these sort of things. I wish that were, but then we'd be living in a fantasy world, So, so basically, try and avoid and as much sort of noise that could potentially make things worse. Good to hear that you've basically you only have red light on and you've got your blue blocking. Yep, good. Very important that people remember. And also on their computer or laptop run, which is, what is it called again? F.lux, Flux. What it does is, so F.lux, what it does is it actually can change the light, so reduce the blue light on your monitor. Because remember, you've still got photoreceptors on your skin at night. So I actually run F.lux, and because the most prominent, the most sensitive ones are on your eyes, that's why I wear the glasses, the blue blocking glasses, which you've seen me wear in the evenings. Because remember, your circadian rhythms, that light is being detected by those sensors, and is actually increasing your melatonin. You need that melatonin to repair at night. So if you don't produce enough melatonin because of a lot of blue light, your eyes will degenerate, your mind will degenerate, your body will degenerate at different degrees depending on your own detoxification capacities and pathways in your body. Different people have difference. I've got pretty good ones, which I'm lucky because I've got longevity genes, but not everybody has. Some people can fall apart far more. So, and we've heard stories. I'm jealous. So Zombie Mukbang is actually lying in bed at the moment eating pork rinds. Actually, my sister makes some of the best pork rind. Oh, God. I'm addicted to it. Yeah, make sure it doesn't have any seed oils. It's not commercial stuff and has any seed oils. That is dangerous. G'day, Chris. Mince equals... yeah, exactly. That's... I never thought about it that way.
Just eat it with a straw and it's a smoothie now.
Just get one of those metal ones which doesn't, so it actually maintains its integrity, or glass ones. So you can go, yeah, I didn't think of that. That is funny, actually. It's a good one, Chris. Oops, down. So I went up a plane I went up in a plane a day ago and realized how Europe gains serfs weren't meant to operate heavy machinery even when sober. Fun, but not easy. Interesting comment. So Luke's doing some bodybuilding. Likes the idea for the smoothie. Milk, fruit, yogurt stuff. Take it, the fruit.
Yeah, strictly speaking, with a carnivore smoothie, you just do milk, yogurt, and honey.
Yeah, exactly. Take out you don't need the fruit, honestly. Yeah, I wouldn't even actually put in I wouldn't even use the honey. I'd basically just focus on the milk and milk, eggs, and yogurt. That would be my sort of, yeah.
Yeah, milk, yogurt, and egg yolks.
Yeah. And, and because you're doing bodybuilding, throwing the whites as well. But basically, I would cook them and then basically blend them. So cook them, blend them, and then throw them in. If you want that additional anabolic type thing. If you don't, because you've got enough other powders or whatever, just ignore the whites completely, because you don't want a biotin deficiency. That won't help your gains. Yeah, so any other suggestions, Jared?
No.
Nope. Okay. So I think we're on the same page. It's the old Arnold Schwarzenegger type approach. And look, in his days before he lost his marbles recently, eating vegetables, when he was a real man with gains and muscles, back then he basically, these are the sort of supplements, natural supplements that he used to build that big body. That he was in Conan the Barbarian and all that sort of stuff, So as far as I'm concerned, nice one, Ozma. With a straw. Let's not forget the straw. You're welcome. Yeah, go ahead and check. Also because there's the playlists also have got the stuff that I did with Bart as well, which is very insightful as well for her. Also the apes, how the chimps eat a ton of meat a year and stuff like that. That's a quite interesting one, and a bit about their physiology and stuff like that. We need to demystify, because there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of BS that people are basically just have been told for years. If you look at the poor animals in the zoos, they feed them bananas and they actually get all sick because they don't have the capacity to and fructose, even in them, will turn into fat. Where are you going to store the fat if you don't have if you only have 0.005% of your body mass as fat cells? Where are you going to store it? They get very sick very fast. Fucking idiots. That's why now, when you go to zoos, what do they say? Don't feed the animals. Because basically they know it's not appropriate to eat bananas. They didn't eat fruit. They killed other little monkeys and ate them. And that's what our common ancestor did between the two of us. So, yeah. Yep. There's a bit of truth in that, unless you're my father, he doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't listen to his doctor. His doctor says, do this. And he goes, oh, yeah, whatever. He's one of those, old people, 85. He doesn't. Probably that's where I get that sort of, I don't give a shit. What? Oh, yeah, whatever. So, yeah, Dad's a bit like that. But most are compliant children, yes, unfortunately, and they have also succumbed to the white coat syndrome, as I call it. Whatever the white coat tells them is gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, unfortunately. So Luke's still telling us he's going to transition. Which one of your heads is telling us this, Luke? Come on. Be We're not talking about the other one down there. Keep that in your pants. G'day, mate. Pin it. Yeah, Fapnado will always come up with the ultimate statement. I've always said that. Leave poor Frankie alone. No, he's good. Look, I still like Frankie. I know a lot of people in the carnivore community don't, or he and they are at war with each other. I don't bother. Waste of time, waste of energy.
It's needless. Yeah,
it is. It absolutely needless. The real opponents is the big food industry. Those big, like Cargill, all the big companies, Unilever. It's all these organizations that are trying to move us to the next level of processed food, which is plant-based crap, junk food 2.0. That's what they're trying to, because there are better profit margins. That's the reality. Look, let me be quite clear. Some of these companies are quite innovative. I take my hat off to them, as innovators, coming up with great ideas as companies to, develop new technologies and new ways of being able to extract things and all that. Mm-hmm. It's not good for our health, but as innovators, developing technologies and all that, they're pretty good. I take my hat off to them. But the problem is, they're in it for the money. Like any business. I mean, if you run business, my father had a small business, corner shop, and you're always looking at, how can I squeeze the margins? How can I lower the input costs into my business? Because at the end of the day, you want cash flow and you want to reduce the amount of cost to run your business and do your business, So I'm not against that, but at the end of the day, government has responsibility not to be bought out by these companies. Or even, let's say, if I had the money and I was part of that grouping, that elite, I shouldn't have the ability to override the 99% of the population, and those people should be representing, since they get elected by us, by the majority, the 99%, and not basically literally sell their souls for like Judas for a couple of pieces of gold. Because that's what a lot of them do, unfortunately. They're corrupt and all that. And we need to expose those naughty politicians as well for their indiscretions. But, fundamentally, these big food companies, multinationals, they're basically in it for the money. They get the profit margins. And they've found the perfect community to promote them. The vegan community. Just look at, all of them. Hench, John Venus going in and having a plant-based burger, or the other rat bags in the UK, like Earthling Ed and people like that, So these people are basically promoting these big multinationals and saying, this is the new food. And you have to remember that 99% of the population are snowflake middle class. And they'll go for this. And that's where really the big threat to our food supply is. It's not the vegans. They're what I call the fifth echelon, or the stormtroopers of the new food industry, or the modern food industry. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, it's the sort of snowflake middle class that are going to be basically made to feel guilty that they're not doing the right thing for the environment, they're not doing the right thing for the planet, for their kids, their grandkids, and whatever, and they're going to be manipulated in destroying their health. So unfortunately. G'day.
Yeah, it doesn't take an agenda. It just takes useful idiots.
Good to see you, Mandy. Did you get my email? I hope you did. What was that?
I was just saying it doesn't take like an agenda to be promoted by at the grassroots level. It just takes useful idiots who genuinely believe what they're being sold.
Yeah, look, exactly. And it helps when you've got people that have severe brain fog and have difficulty putting a couple of sentences together. So okay, Harry. Is that raw milk you talk about? Yeah, made by Kale. Yep, that's the brand. Yep, that's the Australian brand now, and that's it's very different than the approaches that they use in other parts of the world, where they actually will run it through the factory through a whole lot of piping and chill it and put. It's a different approach. Where the Australian method, I think, is much better because they bring it in. They go to the farm, they pick it up, they put it in basically the tankers, the milk tankers. They bring it to the actual factory. They put it through into the bottles. So they put it into a big it goes from one tanker to the factory tanker. So they just transfer the milk across to the factory tanker, and they're not concerned about bacteria or anything. It just gets a quick transfer across. They keep those clean anyway, but it's just how milk is transported. And then what they do is then they put it into every individual bottle, and those bottles are put into the machine as bottles, as the finished product. So all that the machine does is puts it under, from memory, and this will show how poor my memory is. It's at the lowest point of the Pacific Ocean, 6 times that pressure, and it literally breaks the membranes of the pathogenic type bacteria. So they've worked out exactly without affecting the enzymes, because they've actually done a study with one of the universities in Australia, in Queensland. So in that regard.
So they're aware of the nutritional benefits of raw milk, and they've designed a process specifically with preserving that as best they can in mind.
Exactly. So you still get about the riboflavin, which is B2, and remember, riboflavin is really important for a lot of processes in the mitochondria, and also in methylation as well. Very important for methylation. Many people forget about that side of things. So you're one of the, anyway, I'll be talking with Bart. You can watch that one about methylation. And I'll be bringing up, how raw milk is really important, because, 2 glasses of raw milk will give you all your riboflavin you need. Plus, it'll give you all your, more or less nearly, all your vitamin B12 as well. So it's really high in B vitamins. Plus, you'll get enough. If you're on a carnivore diet, you'll get enough. You'll get about 10 milligrams of vitamin C as well, which is really good. So, and we probably only need on a carnivore diet something like 6. So we're getting nearly double, and then you're going to get some from meat and all that. So, I have raw milk, 2 glasses, so, and I'll just give you a sec.
If he comes back with raw milk, I'm going to have to go get a glass of milk after he gets back. Oh, they specifically advertise enzyme rich.
Yeah, so that's the actual the brand, the Australian. I hope that technology takes off around the world, because it will actually mean it'll improve the quality of and also, the quality of the milk supply around the world, without
Yeah, I would.
having to have these constant battles with certain organisations about the risk of milk and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it completely removes the rhetoric of the dangers of the bacterial contamination.
And you'll have to give up also on your hobbies jumping the border, won't you? As well. you know, won't go there. People
Oh
may be
yeah, no,
listening.
I had a fun experience there at the time before last that I went down. I won't get into.
Yes, yes, yes. Just in case people are listening, yes. I'm 50. I'm 59, and I started the carnivore diet by accident. Well, that's a novel way of actually starting it. 6 or 8 weeks ago. Uh, no disaster pants. I didn't have an issue either. That's because I had a lot of animal products in my gut, my liver was more or less, the bile. Because when you've got you're already eating animal products, even from a standard diet, which isn't very unhealthy, you'll basically, your ability to recycle bile properly is less of an issue. It's more people that have been on quite a lot of like plant-based diets for a number of years. They're the ones that actually really struggle. They're the ones that actually really tend to have the disasters in the pants, because they usually tend to have all the problems with the guts, the gut lining, the colon. They've had their literally guts ripped to pieces by all these plant fibers, excessive
Mm-hmm.
amounts. And they're the ones that actually usually struggle, where people who are omnivores and moved over to keto or that just because they wanted to lose weight, and then eventually they gravitate towards carnivore even accidentally. It's the same thing that I did. I never had any of that sort of those sort of issues and all that. And even, as I said last time, when I had from some stupid experimentation that I was doing, but I thought I had some issue, and I went and got myself checked out, and I was told that, I think, about the gut, where I did the my stomach, my colon, not an issue, perfect. Actually, I got better results. My sister actually got a fright. She had some polyps and stuff like that, the one that was vegetarian. So she's still healing in a sense, where even though, my issue was cardiovascular, and that was due to seed oils, basically. That's basically it. Nothing negative other than some fatigue that has resolved. That's good. Look, like with everything, people, there's a bit of an adaptation. You're moving from one sort of dietary. You basically, your body needs to, build a whole lot of new machinery, which is all those enzymes, those little proteins, those little machines, and it has to build a lot of that sort of stuff in order to what scientists call hydrolyze those new nutrients that you're consuming in a larger amount. So that means you will create new enzymes that basically more enzymes that can deal with the new foods or the larger quantity of those foods that you're consuming. And it will downregulate the enzymatic pathways and the transcription of those, which is basically your DNA unravels, RNA transcription, which is creating a protein. That's what a transcription factor is. It's a protein, a little machine. And it'll get its vitamins and minerals, the cofactors and stuff like that, and then it'll go away and break down stuff and fix things and repair things and join things together and stuff like that. And that's what we've got billions of machinery in there doing that sort of stuff, and we're just building those continuously. And there's an adaptation phase that everybody goes through, and most of these things sort of settle down. So yeah. And her adult kids, who are still in the brainwashed paradigm, think she's lost her mind. Yeah, that doesn't. I'm not surprised. I've heard similar stories from elderly people that have made some changes to their life, and then they've had a lot of opposition from their kids. Yeah, so it's and sometimes hostile. So I hope that's not your case, but yes, we've people when they're so brainwashed, they think, oh, my mother's going to kill herself. Believe me, Elizabeth, most people that have moved over to our community have resolved all their issues. I'm glad you're part of our community. And look, I go, I look at actual real information. I mean, I did recently on my own ancestors isotope analysis information, the nitrogen 15 stuff. If you look at that, you'll see basically that how carnivorous they were, and they were great warriors and strong into old age. If you basically look at populations around the world prior to agriculture, their levels are in the super to hyper carnivore levels, higher than Arctic foxes or anything. And I've shown that in past. I mean, you've seen some of the stuff that I've actually put up on the screen. Just have to go back, and I can't remember which one it was now. The reality is, until the mega beast declined, and the amount of energy that we had that we could tap into in terms of fat declined, we had no other option but to shift slowly to agriculture, to basically find another source of energy in this form of starch carbohydrate. So that's what happened, and the rest is history. But and we suffered for it, as we started eating more and more plants and reducing the amount of animal products. Our brain shrunk over a number of generations, from Cro-Magnon man down 10%. So, and now vegans want to take us to the next level, turn us back into chimps. Brain sizes. Yes. So if you look, we've been doing since the 70s that BS of high carbs, low fat. Look where it's taken us. Alzheimer's, dementia, all these little things. You're doing the right thing. Protect your brain. You need cholesterol. People that live the longest are the people that basically have the highest cholesterol in old age. And don't fear meat. Just add more. Reduce plants to nothing. They're unnecessary, and eat. But also fast. Fasting is very important. You can't be anabolic continuously. It doesn't matter. It's just the difference on a keto, carnivore, low carb diet. It's much easier to fast. You need that pulsatile effect. A few days where you restrict, and you want to be, sort of rotating and having days even where you feast a bit, have a bit more extra, So push that, push the, your metabolism up a bit by having extra calories, So you don't want to be basically just, like that. You want to be like this in your eating patterns. Much healthier, because that's how our ancestors were. Sometimes they had more, sometimes they had less. They went through these cycles. They didn't eat 3 square meals or 6 square meals a day or stuff like that. That's just nonsense.
I'm going to go get a glass of milk.
I've convinced you, haven't I? I need that extra riboflavin for my mitochondria and my methylation. Yeah, okay. You do that. Yep. Many have suffered that, from what I've heard. Yep, you tell him that's what he needs to do. And you'll be doing as well. Okay, Elizabeth, I had flu. Yeah, oh look, it's been going around the office like eventually we'll get corona as well. That'll circulate around as well. It's only a matter of time. The flu's basically one of the guys, he's a vegetarian. He's had it for over a month. Dead man walking. Yeah. But can you convince them to make changes? Nah. Unfortunately, his wife works in the medical system, so dietetics, yeah, say no more. So he's well controlled. I had the flu after fever broke. I just started eating meat out of the freezer. Okay. Daughter laughed. Oh, Bob, you are going carnivore. Okay. So I started reading and I had no idea. It doesn't matter, how you did it, So we all come to this part of the world in strange and funny ways. Um, as I say to people, unless you're prepared to be in the tropics, if you want to eat carbohydrates, unless you're prepared to be in the tropics completely naked all day and in the sun to get sufficient, so you don't end up basically catabolic like those fruitarians. You really have to. The further away from the equator you are to get energy, and low powered energy. You don't want energy that is high, has high power and strength to it, that has high levels of UVC in it, because that literally damages your mitochondria. So that sort of source of energetic type force in the mitochondria isn't healthy. If you're in the tropics, because you're depleting deuterium, and there are ways of actually reducing these sort of effects, and you're also getting a lot of energy from the sun because you're completely naked. But the majority of us can't do that. And if you're basically up in the Arctic Ocean, you better be like those polar bears and eating meat and fat, because that's the only thing that's going to save you, and that's the only thing that's going to displace deuterium within your environment. So, and you're going to keep your nanomotors, your mitochondria healthy, so your cells can work and repair themselves and be healthy and far more youthful. Yeah. So yeah, look. See, sometimes even from the worst situations, a flu, you can end up a carnivore. Maybe that should be a new slogan: get the flu and become a carnivore. Somebody's bound to grab that. Unlikely, but anyway. But yeah, look, I'm happy for you, Elizabeth. Good for you. All the kids, they'll wake up to it at some stage. They'll come around. One can only hope. So it's a bit like that. Exactly, Shell. That is exactly what they are. Yes. So they're not, they're protected with a whole lot of anti-nutrients, because that is basically the plant's, the seeds are basically the things that the plant needs to basically grow somewhere. If we consume it, or, they're going to get upset with us. Plants actually even communicate between themselves when they actually find that there are predators around. They actually send signals and upregulate the anti-nutrients and the toxins. So even when a machine comes through, or a person picks them or whatever, they can detect that. Because naturally they just drop it. They just drop it, and it just sort of, the air will take it and stuff like that. When it comes to the seeds, fruit is different. Fruit, they want you to eat the fruit. So they make it very appetizing. It's like, the plant over sexualizes the fruit to make it so appetizing that you grab it and eat it. Because that is the way you'd be out in the savannah and you'd be shitting it out. And I can tell you, if you eat a lot of fruit, you'll get the runs, because of the high deuterium as well. So it's not the stuff you want to be putting anything that basically is a seed or a fruit is the worst for your mitochondria as a food source that you can get to. Obviously industrial seed oils are worse. They have got double the deuterium of many of these carbohydrates. But at this same time, but that's a man-made poison, because that's all it is. Cheap poison for convenience. Yeah. So, yep. Well, within reason. I'm not an oracle. Working towards it. Nah, good. If you see me study DAC like that, just, have a go at me. Just say, get off your bloody high horse. It's just misspent nights reading stuff. Wish I had a nickel for every time I heard olive oil is yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Is the ultimate. Yes. Unfortunately, we've been indoctrinated with that, but it's full of plant sterols. Do you want plant cholesterol in your red blood cells, stiffening them so they can't get the oxygen into those little crevices, those little fine, thin blood vessels? Probably not. Think peripheral neuropathy. Think heart issues and necrosis, tissue necrosis. What will happen long term? Remember that idiot that I said, the 40-year-old vegan that McGregor talks about? He used to consume shitloads of them. He downed them. He basically was the ultimate, phytosterol nutcase. So I think he was a doctor, or he was either a nutritionist or a doctor. I can't remember now. That guy. They're both just as bad and just as ignorant. Chris, the PC low carb gang. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of them still bang on about health, fats from olives, avocado, nuts, seeds. Yeah, I know. I hear it constantly, Chris. It drives me up the fucking wall. They just don't realize, because see, this is the problem when you don't have an ant. I've got from both ends. So I've got an ancestral overview going right back to 3 million years. So I've researched right through the hominins and all that, and even the common ancestor to the chimps and us, the other apes, if you believe that. And the thing is, in that relationship, if you look at all this evolutionary changes and all the actual the way we've actually adapted and stuff like that, it's quite clear that we've lost a lot of the mechanisms to deal with that sort of stuff. We don't have a big cecum like a lot of the apes have, so they can handle some of this sort of stuff. But even you take a look, what are they eating? They're eating a lot of termites. They're eating a lot of meat, and their only starvation foods are not seeds. They're not seeds. There are two types of starvation foods that they use: fruit and leaves. That's it. Now, fruit obviously is a problem, but they don't use a lot, but they use primarily leaves. So fruit is sort of, just to get the glycogen up, because you can't see, when you're eating leaves, you can only get short chain fatty acid. You can't get any glycogen. They need to replete. So having leaves and some fruit is okay, because that will all go into, glycogen storage. Excessive fruit is not good for them, because they don't have the fat cells to store that, the fructose into fat. But what happens is they don't touch the stuff. And remember, leaves, because of photosynthesis, are depleted in deuterium. Actually, a lot of the tribal populations get the leaves, actually squeeze all the juices out of it into the ostrich eggs and stuff like that, like the sand boar or the bushmen do, and they actually have depleted deuterium water which is low in deuterium, in some cases even lower than fat. So that water is really healthy. So you could have a few carbs and that will actually still get you into that sweet spot if you're basically drinking that sort of water from the leaves, because it's depleted because of UV. And that's what the actual chimps are doing. They're on a depleted deuterium diet, bloody perfect as far as I'm concerned. Their nanomotors, their mitochondria are top notch. The chimps know something better than us, so they actually consume those leaves. But they've got a big fucking cecum where we've got an appendix, and they can fill that up with bacteria, and that's like a second stomach that it can actually process all that extra fiber, starvation food that they utilize. But look, nuts and seeds and all this sort of stuff, and you're right, Chris, is not meant for human consumption. We're being brainwashed and manipulated. There's somebody who's mischievous. The curious cat. The mischievous, curious cat.
The famous butter.
Yes, exactly.
Come here, butter.
G'day, butter. Yeah, my sister's got a really nice, cute cat as well, Lucy. She's mischievous as well, like all cats. Yeah, me too. Pim's great. I think we're all in agreement with that. Yeah, she's good value and a wealth of information, especially when it comes to things like addiction and stuff like that. She's really researched it. I haven't, I'll be honest. I know sort of the general stuff like Bart knows about addiction, but she's really researched addiction, and so she's really up to scratch on when it comes to addictions and strategies and methods of how to cope with addiction. So consider that as a good source of information. Yeah, I saw that actually. I didn't see it in the morning. That was just too early. She's going back to a regular time, thank God. That was just too far early. So, I was still in bed. I got to bed late last night, 2:30. So, God, I just couldn't get up that early to basically watch Pim and Nick. But I did watch it, and it was interesting. Nick sort of, I wouldn't take metformin, no way. I just changed my diet. Nick tends to have, I think, because the problem is with metformin, it does cause dysregulation with gluconeogenesis and a number of other things. And I think that what he's doing is he's putting a brake on effectively being able to be to use ketosis to lower, and that's why he's still in that 6 point something his blood sugar. If you got rid of the metformin and used some other stuff to lower, and just basically said, "Oh, cop it sweet. I'll accept that my blood sugar may go up in a short period of time," and then, but really, the thing that I noticed, because I had issues similar, I'd have to go on that machine. I'd have to go all the way back to the beginning when I actually did it, and that it's too far back to go on that sort of device. So it's really hard to because you click, be here for hours clicking. But in my early days, my blood sugar was much higher when I was sort of transitioning and changing and stuff like that. And so you sort of have to cop it for a while and work hard at it to basically then force your body slowly. But you have to go. I was going out and doing a lot of exercise, both lifting and walking, to deplete my glycogen to very low levels, and I eliminated all sugars to zero practically. No dairy, no nothing. It was just basically meat and vegetables and stuff like that. Yeah, obviously the oxalates go because of the lack of dairy and calcium. I ended up getting kidney stones. Yes, I know. I've spoken about that. Probably not the best strategy, but now I'd do it differently. It would be pure carnivore, so it wouldn't have the vegetables in there, so it wouldn't be a problem, an issue. But if you did like a pure carnivore, tallow, organ meats and stuff like that, he would basically get better results and push it. But he hasn't given up on carbs completely, and that's the problem with Nick. So he uses his crutch, and that's called metformin. And this is a problem. A lot of people would rather use a crutch than bite the bullet and just get rid of the damn stuff. those plants. Yep, that's it. Yep. Yeah, look, I know. Yeah, that's exactly it. Cheryl's right. There's all that beautiful lard and tallow and ghee and duck fat and butter and it's just and people, what do? They waste their money on expensive crap that just harms them. I could lather myself in lard. Mm.
It's supposed to be good for your skin and hair to do that, actually.
It actually is good. I actually wash. I've got actually tallow soaps, and I wash with them. But then I use another one, which has got, which is basically goat milk, and it's got lavender. It's got some stuff like that, and it's got ash as well, which is really good for your skin as well. Ash. So I use the tallow my first wash, and then my second wash I'll use the other one. The reason for that is because I don't want to smell like meat. Because last time I did that, I didn't actually wash myself off properly, and my mate was going, "Fucking hell, Harry, you smell like fucking meat." And I said, "Do not bite. I will hit you." That's the downside of it, but it is really good for your skin. But at the same time,
I'm sure you'd be very popular with anybody's dogs smelling like that.
I noticed some dogs looking at me funny. Where's the meat? They were confused. That was really all over. That was funny, actually. Got to entertain yourself somehow. Thank God they didn't bite me. I want some of that. Oh, shit. Did we have another glitch? We did. Well, yes, it has been happening for some time. Yep. Yeah, I sort of have done that, like not only fasted but also like 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, and just seeing how quick they come down, and then try different food combinations. A bit of experimentation, and sometimes that's the best way, because doctors are never going to do that. They see you once in a blue moon, and they think, yeah, that's your reading for the whole year, and you go, no, it's not. It's a dynamic system that's fluctuating all the time, depending on what you're putting in it, what you're doing, what sort of exercise. Everything fluctuates. What sort of level of cortisol levels you've got, how stressed you are. That'll push up blood sugars as well, cortisol. That's another reason why you should not eat in the morning between the hours of waking and the hours of midday. So sort of, 10:30 around there, because by 11 o'clock, your cortisol's back down to very low levels. But, you can speed that up with some salt water. That will suppress cortisol and bring it down much faster. And so then, which is what I do. And I usually break my fast at sometimes at around 10ish or 10:30 or whatever. Sometimes mostly 10. But that's by using salt water from 9 o'clock to sort of suppress it and bring it down.
What time do you usually get up?
Oh, it depends. Depends when I go to bed.
Right.
I can be a bit of a night owl sometimes if I'm doing stuff.
Yeah,
but
similar.
but normally I sort of get up anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 is the time that I get. And because we've got flex time and all that, I can go in whenever I like, and sort of because I'm I've been there for donkey's years. I've for multiple years now. That I'm like the furniture there. So I don't, I'm not micromanaged like, younger staff or more recent staff or whatever. So,
Right.
So in that regard, I'm quite flexible. I just, which is good, to be able to have that. But at the same time, when I do wake up, I literally poke my head out. I know it sounds weird, but I open up the window and I poke my head out so I can so my melanopsin in my eyes can get that initial, as the sun's coming up, they can get basically that red light and then the blue light pattern to basically say, oh, we're waking up. This is morning, and it sets your circadian rhythm properly for the rest of the day. And then I go out at lunch, reinforce that. Then in the evening, as the sun comes down, I make sure that I actually get that red shift into the infrared. So that sort of stuff. The best healing you can do with magnetism is basically in the evening, because it will be stronger on the side that on the side that's dark. The Earth's magnetosphere will be much stronger. It actually goes up slightly. So on the side that it actually sunny, it actually goes down. So magnetism and light, the stuff that I'll be talking in the future, how this also interplays with your circadian rhythm, resets things and all sorts of things. So and also is healing. That's why night restful. If you can earth yourself. I know Bart uses a copper wire.
Yeah, you can buy just like just earthing anklets or whatever to
exactly
plug into an outlet and then just wrap it around your ankle for the night. I've
Yeah,
thought about
exactly.
getting one.
Yeah.
Or you could make one just by stripping an extension cord, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, in the
But
past, we
don't do
would have
that unless you
basically
know what you're doing.
precisely. You don't want to kill yourself. We in the past actually did. We slept. For millions and millions of years on the ground. We slept close to the Earth, to Earth's magnetism. So, the further away you are, like if you're on the second floor, third floor, you're in an apartment. You're basically, I usually say, most people say, oh, I love the view up here, but you're further away from the Earth's magnetism, so it's less healthy to be at the top floor. It's best to be on the ground floor or even in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds weird, but actually that's where you're healthier, because you're closer to the Earth's magnetic field. The problem is in America, from what I've heard, in the US and in a number of other countries, has to do with some of their infrastructure, the way it's in the ground, that creates sort of like dirty electricity. So it creates electromagnetic fields that interfere and distort those fields that are coming from the Earth, and so can have some deleterious effects. So that sort of side, but yeah, it's a hard one for people in the US with that sort of stuff. I say, well, if you can get out into nature now and then, away from the big smoke and all that, go to the beach, swimming in the ocean. If you're, like I don't know what the water quality is in some of the beachfront areas in America. You have to find the appropriate place. Going in the water will actually earth you to the ground, to the planet. Yeah, so it's complicated, because blue light is in like 5G. It's, as I said, it's not the radiation that's the problem. I mean, I did a thing with Bart and actually showed quite clearly that there's no heat shock protein activation. There's the actual radio waves themselves and all that are not causing any problem. And they had something that is known to cause problems, and that was quite clearly elevated. EMF wasn't affecting at all. But it's not through that mechanism, it's through light. That's the problem. So, because remember, light acts as a wave, an electromagnetic wave, and as a photon. So you need to understand that the frequency, that blue light frequency that some of these devices emit, that's the stuff that's actually causing the problem in terms. And on top of that, affecting the fields, which basically are therapeutic to us, creating this, what some have dubbed as dirty electricity or whatever. So that's where the issues lie. Now, what does that do? That basically, I wasn't going to get into this, but I might as well a bit while I'm on the go. You know what I'm like, ranting, yeah. And what are you actually doing? You're actually depleting your NAD plus. That's what you're doing. So, and that's important for, I'm not going to go into NAD plus, sort of the oxidase, because that's what it's doing, is oxidizing in the mitochondria and then basically going in the reduced form that basically then gets recycled, okay, NADH. But you'll end up overusing, your requirements for NAD plus go up. This is where David Sinclair actually promotes, and that's where he's right. He's crap about the carbohydrates, but he's right about NAD plus, because in our environment, the way we actually operate, which is dirty environment, we have all this, electromagnetic sort of, not poison, effect on our body that actually basically increases reactive oxygen species. And so what we have is, more NAD plus involved in that sort of, that process of the electron transfer within the mitochondrial membrane. And the requirements for that go up quite a bit because you need more energy to do all these sort of things. The higher amount that's required of NAD plus. So, there are a number of strategies you can use. You can basically use nicotinic acid, like I use, which is vitamin B3, which is a precursor to NAD plus. You can use nicotinic riboside, or NMN, nicotinic I can't even pronounce it. Yeah, which is the other thing that actually increases, which are supplements you can actually increase for longevity and stuff like that. But I don't recommend them for people that basically have some underlying issues and health issues and all that. We need first to resolve those and all that, because if your nanomotors are inefficient, if you're overloading yourself with NAD plus, but your nanomotors can't use it because they're not working properly, that can cause a whole lot of problems, cascading problems in the actual mitochondria, and increase, sort of reactivity and damage. So we don't want to do that. So, and this is what these gurus don't talk about. So basically we need to fix that sort of stuff first of all, and what I would supplement with something like coenzyme Q10 and PQQ, which is a supplement that I've mentioned before, that actually increases the biogenesis of new mitochondria, plus tallow fats that have got high saturated fats like stearic and palmitate cause that reverse electron transport of electrons funneled through complex 1, which basically then bleeds out into a signaling molecule that tells the cell to create more mitochondria, more new healthy mitochondria. So we need to fix that sort of side first, and then we can add more NAD plus, or the precursors to NAD plus, because we will need it in an environment where there's a lot of 5G and all that. We will be burning through NAD plus like there's no tomorrow, and that will zap our energy. We'll feel tired, weak, unhealthy, shit, and all that. So that's an issue anyway. So I just wanted to bring this up to people that are aware that a species in this sort of environment, toxic environment, a species appropriate diet is the only way to protect yourself. If you're not on a species appropriate diet, you're going to really be in a real mess in a couple of years, as this additional load of stress is inflicted on the body, So it's really important, guys. As I say, embrace the saturated fat, love your fat, kiss it, caress it, marry it if you can, Actually, that would be a good slogan. If you want to live longer, marry your saturated fat.
I'm probably going to head to bed in the next 15 minutes or so.
Mate, I understand. We usually go for too long.
Well,
I'm gonna sort of try and cut it around there. Let's try and find some really interesting stuff. Yep, just wanted to put up that up. You mean I blab too long on certain things and I go on a rant? I remind myself like that. Even my friend says, bloody hell, can't you keep it short and sweet? Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's not possible if you're trying to explain things. Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, I know you've got a number of issues because we will have a chat. I do make exceptions. Mandy's, got a number of issues that she's dealing with, so I want to help her. Yeah, we're going to use a number of strategies. I need to get more information. I just can't, if I don't know exactly what's happening and some underlying history and all that, it's really hard to comment because there's so many pathways that could be interacting and affecting. It takes hours to sort of try to tease out what is really. I mean, you've known even with Bart to try and narrow down what are the issues and stuff like that. It's not a straight line, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, that's good, Kitty. Yeah, sort of. Yeah, that was quite funny. That when I did the just recently the coronavirus thing, and I had some lady come, out of the blue, and tell me about some doctor. I actually went to his site, and I actually did check him out after. He's a charlatan. He's a naturopathic charlatan. Has no idea. He basically says that vitamin D that basically underpins over 1,000 enzymatic processes in your body. Your T cells to basically make sure you can fight off any pathogenic, like pneumonia, to fight it off. Especially your respiratory infections, you need T cells to go after that sort of stuff and to bring under control those sort of pathogens, those sort of bacterial type and yeast type pathogens that cause pneumonia. So, and here's this guy saying, well, no, you don't want vitamin D or retinol. They're toxic. What? They just, you take those out, you'll start getting those funny growths from matrix metalloproteinase on your skin. Those growths. It's because people don't have enough retinol. And then he talks about other shit like about beta carotene. Yeah, carotenoids are not good, especially if you don't have poor conversion. But we're not talking about the plant shit. I know about that. But this guy, and then he was showing these charts, but he wouldn't show any studies. He'd just sort of show things up and then rant his own sort of propaganda, which no supporting evidence, no nothing. Here there's a mountain of science going back 100 years, and this guy, God Almighty, it was crazy. I hope and I don't think a lot of his subscribers are going to be alive if they get corona, if they've got very poor immune systems to fight the pneumonia, because it's not the virus that kills you, it's the pneumonia that actually kills you. And if you've got very low status vitamin D and retinol that are basically regulate those sort of collagen degrading enzymes and make sure that they maintain the integrity, that these sort of pathogens damage the integrity of the collagen structures within your lungs, there's going to be a lot of victims that this person's going to create, potentially even himself. So fucking hell, some crazies out there. Another one about the robots. The robots are coming. The only thing from a low-fat era, I also avoided margarine and seed oils. Yeah, that was the only good thing you did. I didn't. I believed the white coats, and I consumed shitloads of it. And unfortunately, I ended up in my mid-40s in a hospital having my chest ripped open. That was a fun experience. Yeah. Look, Gundry, is a plant-based doctor, and he's just basically just plant BS, not paradox. Yes, lectins are bad. I agree with him on that. But all the other phytosterols and phytochemicals and all that, hermetic effect, how much fucking hormesis do you need? Exercising creates a hermetic effect. Blue light creates a hermetic effect. If you get a whip and whip yourself, that'll create a hermetic effect as well. Some people like that one. But,
sauna, cold exposure, hypoxia.
Precisely. Yeah. There's plenty of hermetic effects. You don't need plants to do it. We're overloading ourselves with hermetic effects. We've got 5G and all these sort of things. We don't need more. We need less. We've got too many stresses in our lives. We need to reduce them. This is why people feel so good on a carnivore diet, because they get rid of all these stresses. Once upon a time when you were out there and, the water, over 10,000, was it 10 or 30,000 years ago? I can't remember. In the Paleo period before, because it was much colder and all that, the water fractionation at the time was about 130 parts per million to 35 parts per million. It wasn't 155 like it is today. And the reason for that is also because there was less carbon in the atmosphere as well. So the carbon component actually increases the actual deuterium in the water. So deuterium in the water is just going up. It's not going down in that regard. So the water is becoming more toxic. So if there's one thing about carbon dioxide, well, plants need it, but water actually becomes more. It increases its level of deuterium. So that's a side point anyway. Probably shouldn't say that too loud. The vegetards will hear it and start running with it. I know. You think it's a joke? It's real. They'll run with it. And the thing is, we don't need any more of this sort of shit. We need to basically, there's a bit of benefit there for the, but it's a minor thing, basically unnecessary. We get plenty, you can get it in eggs. You don't need to get it from plants, so especially soy, which is so harmful to the body in that regard. Got away at the end.
Must have jumped down.
Oh, it doesn't matter. We jumped. Such is life. Plant antioxidants in excess actually promote. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they actually become pro-oxidants. If you dump this is why your body actually will turn a whole lot of vitamin C into oxalate to get rid of it, because it's a toxin. Because the problem is you unbalance things. Vitamin E and vitamin C should never be had in large amounts. They have certain roles, but they shouldn't and they should be used for those roles. They shouldn't be used for things like antioxidants. That's where glutathione should be playing a role. And when you've got more glutathione, you can recycle the vitamin C and the vitamin E because it's an electron donor. So, but when you've got too much and you're eating too much sugar, which means your glutathione is in the toilet, what are you going to end up with on a vegetarian diet? You're going to end up with a whole lot of oxalate, and then you wonder why your kidneys go to shit. So this, it's just the madness never ceases to amaze me about, they create one problem after another. Let's supplement that and let's supplement this and that's that. That's why I say, guys, the only things that I'm interested in, vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. That's the only supplements that I'm focused on. And if you can get them primarily from food, yes. If there are reasons why you can't get these things from food, then we need to look at other strategies. And there are certain elements So if you've got preconditions where you may need to take some of these supplementals in order, like you may need to take like colloidal, trace minerals, which is basically from the plants, which like you find in shale, it's above the level of shale oil, where you find these sort of plants that are basically are in more shallow sort of levels, where they've decomposed and they're actually able to use that and actually derive minerals from them, because our soils are so depleted of minerals. And those sort of things can add sort of trace minerals that we don't get in our diet and stuff like that. Those sort of things. There's a company up in King Island in Tasmania, one that I use for those sort of trace minerals. Those are the things that you basically need for good health. Minerals, most of our food will provide us with fat soluble vitamins, and basically so basically my sort of supplementation regime is minerals and some of those aminos that as I get old and decrepit I need because I can't synthesize, or I need because I'm dealing with a precondition that I'm curing myself from. So that's the sort of approach. It's not rocket science, and I can tell you, if 5G turns up, I'll be on an NAD plus supplement as well. That will be my strategy. So if you're in a 5G area, get on an NAD type supplement. But if you're not, don't bother, because you'll get enough of what you need through the existing diet. But this is the problem. We're just adding more issues. The other thing is LED lights and blue light poisoning that we get in our environment. It's increasing, unfortunately, and that also increases the requirements from NAD plus. So there's a lot of things. It's it's keep it down, butter.
She's not even that close to my microphone. She just purrs loudly.
We could hear you. Nah, she's good. Just kidding.
Chlorophyll tabs. That doesn't sound good.
God, what is that? Is that like what do they call the what's the other thing? Like you've got spirulina, the other one, what is it called? It's similar to chlorophyll. It's like it's
chlorella?
Got a chlorella. That is it. Maybe it's something like that, a chlorella type tablet. Tablets a couple of times and was projectile vomiting body. Said no loudly and clearly.
Well, that's an unambiguous point of data.
Yeah, that's a N of one. Was this were you randomized controlled? Did you fill out the questionnaire properly? I'll assume no. Like the rest of us monkeys. Yes, we're suboptimal, dumb, or just, well, actually, this is a real dumb monkey, Freely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. The only redeeming thing is she lives in the tropics, and because she lives in the tropics, she can deplete deuterium. So all that fruit that adds a lot of deuterium, that UV there is actually protecting her. She just doesn't know it. If she was doing, and you can see it, when people do it in Canada or Northern Europe and all that, they go on a vegan diet and they end up in a very short amount of time really bad, and sometimes bedridden. You've seen some of these vegans and all that. They literally are in a mess compared to somebody in the tropics that can last much longer because they're depleting deuterium, and also they're getting free energy from the sun. Yeah, but she doesn't know it. But it's suboptimal. But the thing is, she can do that for far longer. And that's the reason. But is it healthy? No. Ultimately, you can actually see she's already falling apart. She's aging, in that regard. So, yes, a lot of that sort of stuff. Sort of going back. What time is it? 3. Hey, gang, I've got to... Yeah, fair enough. If you've got to go, you've got to go. That's fine. See you next time. And you're welcome.
Yeah, I think I need to do the same thing before it
Yep,
gets
fair enough.
before I miss my sleeping window here. Leave while I'm tired. Stay too long, and I won't be.
Oh, look! If you, I mean, yeah, I know we sort of go a bit longer sometimes, in that regard.
Oh no, don't apologize. I enjoy it.
We haven't missed anyone. Sometimes it's much easier to go through through this part here. Just go to quickly to the top, and I'll just run down. Don't see anything. See, that's the only problem when I do that, trying to find then where the other part is, because they're not dated. Do you, on the YouTube side of things, do you know how to put actually is there a way of putting a time thing like you get in StreamYard or not?
I'm not sure to timestamp the messages. I don't see one.
Okay, unless anybody else knows. I'll probably have to look into this and try and actually work something a bit better in the way I sort of do that and whatever else, because I'm always trying different things. But get rid of that. I don't need that. Go away. Anyway, we will leave it there. I'll go to the bottom. What was that? Osman, I just noticed. What? The Norwegian girl was very sad thing. I think it was almost a year ago. Okay. Is it the lady we spoke about last time? Or okay. Look, thanks, guys. It's about 3 hours now. I'm going to give it a miss because I want to go around to my sister's place. So as well, because I've got a couple of things that I need to do tonight when I get back, and then tomorrow I've got a chat with Bart on methylation and other things. So yeah, that's cool. Sort of going to keep me happy. Yeah, sort of have to learn how to control this sort of beast a bit better in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Your support. Please like and subscribe if you haven't.
Yeah, you have more likes than viewers for most of the stream. Actually, I think you had like 25 likes.
20 people yeah, I just noticed. Yeah, you're right. Damn. How do yeah, probably some that had left earlier, gone to bed.
Yeah.
Yes, I suspect so. That's it. Thanks, mate. I'll put it up there, Bring the banner up. Bring the banner up. Show the banner. Show the banner. I'll be popping this up now and then. Yes. Having a bit of fun. Anyway, thanks, mate. Good night, and we'll basically chat again whenever you're free. So
yeah, sure.
I'll probably drop you a line if you're interested in next week.
Yeah,
I definitely. But I'll do that just before, because sometimes things do happen, come up, So I'll sort of contact you probably a day before or 2 days before just to make sure that you can make it. And then it makes it a bit easier. So if you can't, you can't. Such is life. We'll miss butter.
It's worked out so far that I've been available for it. So hopefully, I'm sure it will next week too.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Okay, have a good night.
She can't help herself, can she?
I need my rest at my age. Okay?
Hey, Kitty, what about butter? You forgot butter.
Yeah.
I mean, oh God, butter really feels now. She's gone to the corner and she'll be going, yeah. She won't be happy. Is it a he or a she?
She's a girl.
She. I thought it was a she. Yeah. Just in case I get into any trouble.
Don't you misgender my cat? I'll report your YouTube channel.
That's right. I'll probably get from Trudeau. He'll probably send me an official letter from the Canadian government.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that stuff.
Oh God, I know. Yeah, wacko jacko type. I'm thinking it's just crazy. The world.
That's true. She did already have naps. She's probably going to go romp around the house while I'm trying to go to bed.
That's it. Anyway, better let you go. See you, mate. Take care and have an enjoyable sleep or a good night.
Thanks, Harry. Till next time.
Yep. Thanks. See you, mate. Well, he's gone. I'm left, and I have to basically make a few moves as well. Bombay. Nice name. And yes, I sort of have to make some. Actually, my first cat was Sooty. No, not Sooty. No. Oh God, that was the other cat. Too many cats I've had in my life. Cats and dogs. Too many names. Can't remember them all. But photoshopped more. Yeah, just send it through. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. It's great humor, and I think a lot of my followers also appreciate it. And I don't mind if you take the Mickey out of me. I actually enjoy it. It's a sort of an Australian thing. We're pretty much larrikins down here, so it's part of our culture. So better to embrace it. You get more enjoyment. You laugh with your mates. You just the way it is. Anyway, take care, guys. Wherever you are, have a nice day, night, or morning. And hopefully I'll see you all next week. And don't forget the chat that I'm doing with Bart tomorrow. So I'm not sure when he's going to be putting it on or premiering it, so I can't tell you. So I'll find out tomorrow. Anyway, take care. See yous.